Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick, Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Also below this video there is a link to get £50 for switching your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. With that I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show. Broke my mic.
You broke your mic.
Yeah, well I broke the suspension mounting for the mic.
Well, you could borrow one of the springs on the gravity molecule.
Might just do away with the suspension mounting. I think the microphone itself is okay.
Yeah, you sound good.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Neil.
Hello.
Hello.
So
How am I coming in?
Very well. Very good.
Working today, so I'm on mood.
You're on mute. Until they tell you to stop listening, then you put it out loud on speaker.
What I thought I'd do, because of having enough acoustic treatment already to fiddle with it and move things around, I've ordered 2 more panels that I've already got 2 of. I've got 2 of them. I've ordered 2 more. Eventually I'll have 8 in total. I'll just order them every other month or whatever, whenever I can afford to. Anyway.
Is this in addition to what your wife said to do, or is this the same?
No, in addition. So I've ordered one to replace one that I moved around to satisfy my wife's desire to have the one above the radiator look the rest the same as the others. And the other 2, as I say, I've already got duplicates of them in a different location. But I thought, because I've got duplicates of them, rather than getting them in a massive box, then you have to unbox them and deal with the packaging. And they're just cumbersome, and then you're into getting the drill out with 2 brand new things around you that you don't want to get damaged. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. So what I'll do instead is I'll take the 2 that I've already got and just reposition them where the new ones will go. That way I can, it's much more under my control, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, got it all hooked up and all the holes drilled. The main problem I had was I was drilling into a lintel, and I just couldn't get, my drill's just not good enough. It just hasn't got the torque to get into this lintel, even, with a good drill bit and good hammer action. I chewed my way through it over about 10 minutes sitting there with the drill. Eventually got a hole big enough to put a raw plug in. But by the time I've made the hole, I've pointed the hole slightly down. Yeah, because it's right up high near the ceiling. And then I picked out a screw that I thought was appropriate, right, that matched the raw plug and matched the size of the hole. What I didn't realise was this screw had an angled edge on the front of it. And I put this panel on, and within a couple of seconds I turned around to have a look at it, and as my back was turned, literally within a second, it slipped off the screw because it had got this angled edge on it, and I'd put a slightly downward angle on it, so it just slipped off the hardware in the process, taking out the mic and taking out a polystyrene.
Oh, that's what happened. Wow.
Yeah, so I smacked it, and I'm like, oh, marvellous, have I damaged the actual panel? And I hadn't, surprisingly enough. Very well built. Testament to how good they are, considering it fell from the ceiling and hit a load of things on the way down, and then wasn't in any way damaged. I was like, oh, that's surprisingly good build quality. Anyway, but I've now realised, starting the show. Go on.
The same proof of gravity.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, I had to put it up there for it to come back down. Anyway,
There we
Well,
go.
did it fall up? Did they? When it came loose, did it fall up, Nathan?
no,
No,
I had to put it
fell
up. I
down.
just said that. I had to put it up in the air in the first instance. Anyway, so that when it stacked it onto all of the other stuff, I cleared up the mess and there was no real damage done. But now I've realised there is. As I say, this microphone's now got a bus suspension thing, as it obviously twatted into that as it fell down.
But that's what they would say. They'd say, "Well, why didn't it fall up, Nathan? It fell down," and they
No,
ignore
it
the
fell
whole
down
thing
because
about
it fell down because Nathan screwed up.
it's heavier too. He brought it up.
No, anyway, in the end, I changed the screws and
There we go.
polyfilled
gravity
the
with a
holes
screw.
and made them straight so that it wouldn't slip off. Because it's one of those that once it's good in a way that it immediately did it. Because you think, I couldn't forgive myself if it fell on one of my kids. You know, that's the last thing you need. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go to the effort of re-polyfilling it and making sure that the raw plugs are straight and that the hardware won't have it slip off the attachment on the back of the panel that it actually hangs off. And now it's very, very secure, right above my head, I might add. So having said that now, if it does fall off, it'll be very amusing if it happens when I'm doing an intro.
I was just going to say that would be it better be solid now.
Yeah, it's not going to fall down. I've hung off it, you know. I've pulled on the panel while it's attached to the screws, mounted, and it's not going anywhere. But that's what you want, because as soon as I put it back up without changing the screws and just getting it onto the hardware and getting it like balanced on the hardware, you're like, but what if it slips off? You know. So yeah, it's all good now.
Oh, that's good. So I thought you didn't have any more space on your walls, but you found enough for 2 more by exchanging it, right?
Well, no, it's only temporary. So when the new ones come, they'll just go back where the old ones were. But I picked that particular spot because there's the least stuff in here. Obviously, the more I buy, the more stuff there is in here. Therefore, there's the least space, the more I buy, if that makes sense. So I thought, while there's the most space for these particular points, I'll do the most difficult one first, i.e. the one that's got to be drilled into a lintel.
Sure.
So that was my logic.
See, what I thought, what I thought was you took the old one and put it in the place of the 2 you brought to this place.
Yeah, I've got 2 on order that are identical to 2 I've got. So where the 2 that are on order are going to go, I've just taken the ones I've already got and put them there. So when the 2 new ones come, I'll just put the old ones that are now gaps back where they were.
So what are you doing with the one that was there that you're not going to be used anymore?
There wasn't one there. It's in an empty space. It's in a ceiling corner above the existing
Hang on,
panel.
I'm all confused now.
Yeah, you're not paying attention, 10th man.
Hang on, I distinctly heard that you had something there, but it didn't match, and your wife said take it down. What'd you do with that one?
That's the third. That's a different panel. So the panel right next to where I sit was a homemade panel. So when I first started doing this, I bought all sorts of different panels at varying prices and qualities and made one to see which one would, what would be the best way to go forward if I was going to spend a lot of money, which on your was. So do you do it DIY? Do you buy it all in foam that's cheap as chips? Do you buy cheaper panels that are okay? Do you buy really expensive panels? Do you get an acoustician in and get him to do the room? Do you get a design from them, pay for that, and then do it all yourself with drills and so on? You've got to pick which method you're going to do. So that's why I picked all the different stuff, the first round of stuff that I bought. And one of them, like I say, was a homemade panel that sat right next to me where I do the show from.
So where is that one now?
But that one is also, I've done the same thing. So I've moved from behind the door a panel I'd already got into the position that the homemade one was. And then, obviously, that's then leaving a gap somewhere else. Now, I have actually shuffled something else into that position, but that's going to come when that order gets fulfilled. And I'll move that panel back as well, and so it goes on. It's just a case of shuffling stuff around.
So you're still using the homemade one?
No.
10th man, do you want a panel?
I can't believe so that's what's my question. What's happening with the homemade one if you're not using it?
Nothing. I've shoved it under the sofa.
Thank you. That was the answer I was looking for.
I was going to say, do you want a panel or something?
No, I don't want.
Them?
No, I don't want a panel. I'm just trying to figure out what he did with the DIY one.
Obviously, I attempted to put it in a different location, but then the wife wouldn't have that. She was like, no, the purpose of this is to get rid of the one that's ugly, that doesn't match. Like, I'd never thought about it much because I made it. Not that it's like...
I hope you're taping this show. This is too funny, man.
I am taping this show, yeah.
So the homemade one went under the couch, which is the only answer I was looking for from the beginning. But I went through this whole maze to get there.
You took the ball. You took the baller route.
What's so interesting about the homemade one being stuffed, discarded? That was the whole point. That's where this began. The reason I've got
No,
to do.
the whole point was yesterday. You said your wife said, take down that one that doesn't match, get a new one. So I'm running off that information. And today you said that you ended up ordering 2 more. And I'm saying, what? Wait a minute, is this the same one as the one yesterday, or is this different? You said, no, this is in addition. So then that left me with the mind or the thought, well, what's he doing with the old one? So I was just wondering where the old one went, and now I know it's under the couch.
Yeah, the old one's under the couch, and then one that I'd already got in a different category. I did the same thing with a week ago. So I just put next to me a panel from somewhere else in the room, right where the old homemade one was, and I've ordered a replacement for the gap.
You'll never know probably, but maybe putting that under the couch on the floor, that might also help the sound as well.
Maybe a little bit. I doubt it.
Oh, that's funny, man. That's a good back and forth there.
Do you remember me mentioning that Neil criticised me and said you didn't bring a guy up on his flat Earth misapprehensions, and he's a hi-fi guy. And I was like, yes. I don't want to do that. However, when it becomes him saying you're a flat earther if you don't believe my nonsense in cables, that was close enough for me to get halfway through editing the video, and then I still stopped. And then the most recent edition, because he's done like more videos on smoke and mirrors cables than pretty much any other subject he's done. Like normally he'll do a crossover for a particular manufacturer of speaker and then move on to the next in the next video. With this, he's gone on, endless videos about his bloody wire that he's trying to punt, which is fine, until you say 3 things in combination, which is that, number 1, if you don't believe me, you're a flat earther, number 2, and number 3, this is science. Have a listen, it's science. And then talking about how measurements won't necessarily be scientific and they're not measuring the right thing. It's like, measurements aren't science. So I ended up actually responding this time, not just half doing a video in response.
Nice.
Yeah, I listened to it. It was good.
I had to listen. I don't know how it'll go over because it's debunking hi-fi myths. The only bit that's crossover with flat Earth is the science bit. So they're claiming science where they haven't got any. Well, there's a crossover there. Now, I didn't in any way rip into him in terms of his misapprehensions about flat Earth just because he's been sent a T-shirt. My gripe is that you're saying, if you don't believe me, that you're a flat earther. Now, the implication is science denier because he said it. It's like, okay, well, that's a step too far then. I've got to get involved because you're now basically saying, if you don't believe my smoke and mirrors magic show, then you're a flat earther. Therefore, science denier, because we're talking about science here. It's like none of the above is true. So therefore, I made a response.
Saying that he's in hi-fi wires, he should have known how to gauge the argument before he entered it.
I said on the last show, I've got a great pun. I've got no beef with somebody making an extra profit out of wire. A lot of different industries do that because there's very slim margins in the equipment and there's very little new coming out. Certainly very little improvements, and probably hasn't been for 20 years in the equipment. So you've got to have new marketing, new bullshit to try and sell products to people who have already got them. And you've got to have new buzzwords and new decoder technologies and new sample rates and all that sort of stuff to sell more boxes. So I get it. But in the same industry, you've got this completely unregulated section of it that deals with cables. And it's all smoke and mirrors. They immediately move away from
I got sucked into the cables. I went out and I put, if that's what you're talking about, I went and I put these cables supposed to come in more clear of the picture. I bought these hi-fi cables that cost like $100 and it didn't look any different to me or sound any different.
Are you talking about the HDMI?
Yeah, those wires.
Dealing with digital data is complete nonsense. Anyway, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in it, and I've addressed them.
I'm gonna say right now that if anyone wears a T-shirt and it's making flat earthers look derogatory, that's racist and hate speech.
Racist.
Actually, Nathan, that happened to me. I went to listen to this guy Lionel that Eli turned me on to. Nothing to do with flat Earth. And of course, what do you think he's saying? You know, it's like you conspiracy people, like flat Earth. They get on that, and he's talking about people that jump on conspiracies. I was like, I can't believe this. I just came over to hear something else, and he's talking flat Earth. So I had to get on him in the chat. So I put your channel down. So
absolutely, we'll have to continue this conversation in the actual live show. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, then you will be used to my camera not being frozen when I do this introduction. If you are new to this channel, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. That's completely thrown me off. I'm just going to go straight into introducing the panel. My camera froze and that just completely threw me off my intro. We are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Adam and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Afternoon, guys.
how are you?
Check out any other debate for the full intro, e-begging, sponsorships, nonsense, all that. Any other video but this one. It's going to be one of those shows.
Unflappable on that by now, Nathan.
It completely threw me. You have a look out the corner of your eye and you know if things are working. I glance out the corner of my eye, I'm like, is this worth looking at? Because you don't want to look away from the camera. As soon as I looked away from the camera, I'm like, oh, right, well, obviously something's wrong there then. Well, not to worry. It is a public chant today, so you can actually join in the public discourse, or whatever you want to call it, the live stream chat feed. If you're a non-member, you can actually chat today. So enjoy the live chant. I want to continue the conversation. Maybe we'll do housekeeping. Let's turn off these studio lights. I don't need those anymore. The conversation that was going on in the pre-show was about Flat Earth. I'm going to use this word intentionally, infecting other subjects that you wouldn't necessarily associate with Flat Earth. And I've discussed it so many times now on other shows where I'll come across a subject that I think is interesting and as escapism, if you want to call it that, because it's work. This is my job. I'm not going to beat around the bush when it comes to describing what I do for a living. This is it. YouTubing, Flat Earth, that's what I do. So when you do YouTubing in the respect that most people do YouTubing, which is watch a video, you don't necessarily want it to be anything to do with Flat Earth. You just want to watch a video about cars. And then you come across Engineering Explained, doing a video on Flat Earth. Or you want to watch a video about horror, and then you find 32's doing a video about Flat Earth. Or you want to watch a video about hi-fi, and you come across GR Research wearing a Flat Earth t-shirt telling you that you're a Flat Earther if you don't believe his smoke and mirrors snake oil stories about cabling. So you end up with this subject making its way into the list goes on and on and on. That was just 3 examples. There are plenty more examples that I could give you of subjects that I've come across that aren't anything to do with the subject, that suddenly they're for whatever reason discussing Flat Earth. And Neil, just before we went into the live show intro that failed miserably, was telling us of his experience of exactly the same thing. I don't know if you want to carry on that so we can keep the conversation flow going, Neil.
Yeah, I was just saying that this guy, he just brought up Flat Earth and how people get into conspiracies, and they just, no matter what, you show them the science and they still don't believe it. So I was like, this guy's unreal. So I started chatting, I started saying, well, Earth is flat. Why don't you look into it? And then I just plugged your channel. I said, pop on for debate anytime. You'll find you have no science. That was it.
What surprised me in one of the comments of that, the most recent video I've released by GR Research, was one of his commenters specifically noted that he didn't say he was a flat earther. He said, you have no idea how many people who watch your videos are flat earthers. and are interested in crossovers or whatever. I can't remember exactly. I'm paraphrasing very badly. I can't remember exactly how the commenter phrased it. But the commenter was basically saying, look, a lot of your audience are flat earthers, you realise. In other words, don't talk down to flat earthers, just talk about crossovers. Right? That's your channel. Do what you do, because that's what I've come for. Now, his sentiment was exactly my sentiment, and I responded to him. I was like, yeah, I intended to make a video on this guy. And it's true, I almost got to the end of editing a video on it and then decided against it. I'm like, why get between this guy and his earnings? I don't see the point. It's not enough just because he's been sent a t-shirt. Go on, whoever that is.
You know what bothers
Hello.
me? They don't even look into it. Hey, they don't even look into it. They just dog you, and that's it.
Well, in this case,
the trolls are strong today.
Well, the
They're
audio
not
guy,
in numbers.
the audio guy with the cable, he's just pure stereotypical.
in his attitude, but he's a total normie in that regard.
Ah,
I've got no issue with him being a total normie. That's why I stopped making the first video that I edited. It's still sat on my iPad, not going to be completed. But I've got no issue with that. So if it's like, well, I don't really get this, but yeah, of course Earth's a sphere. You're like, am I going to go away and debunk this guy? He's not associated with the subject. Someone's just sent him a t-shirt. But it gets worse, or that was why I edited the first video, because he's saying, well, you're a flat earther if you don't believe my cable nonsense. You're like, well, okay, I get it. You want to sort of associate this free t-shirt with the subject that you're covering. That is almost enough for me to make and publish a video. Enough for me to edit one, for sure. But then when it goes, all of the above, plus science, and then claiming science when you're talking about listening tests, and then if you don't believe my anecdotal evidence of a listening test being better, you're a flat earther. It's like, well, that's just a step too far now. I've got to respond. So check that video out. It's called Snake Oil versus Flat Earth versus Science, or Hi-Fi versus Science versus Flat Earth. I've forgotten the title. It doesn't matter. You'll see it. It's got a guy wearing Earth Isn't Flat, we checked, on his t-shirt.
in a way, it's kind of funny, though, that the liars in all fields are basically giving us free advertisement. They're basically saying, oh, we're trying to cover up our nonsense and lies. It's getting kind of obvious. Oh, flat earther. So everybody's going to just associate it white. So flat earthers are against these liars. Okay.
He wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't. Well, I'd not see. I just saw your premiere earlier, Nate, but he kind of wasn't really addressing. It didn't strike me he was addressing flat Earth as such. He was more using it in a Barack Obama kind of ad hom sense in related to the other people, and then that was. Or has he got a bit more history with flat Earth? Has he?
No, he hasn't. That's as much as it goes. And like I said, I wouldn't necessarily react, or almost did, to that if that was all it was. Because you're like, yeah, you're just using it as an ad hom. Exactly correct, Adam. So is that enough for me to start debunking him on a flat Earth basis? No. But when you're like, here's my smoke and mirrors snake oil, here's my power conditioner. Now, for anybody who's like, well, so what? It's like, no. If you've got a correctly designed amplifier, no power conditioner is going to make a slightest bit of difference to it. It's absolutely preposterous. So, yeah, you can argue to a certain degree that speaker cables can make a difference. If you get them wrong, you can make it worse. So, yeah, you can just about make that argument. When it gets up to thousands of pounds for speaker cables, it's just nonsense. The same with power conditioners, but there is no benefit whatsoever. You could get the gauge wrong slightly and not have enough current go through it and it get hot. But that's about it. If you've got enough copper in there, there's enough wire, that's all you need. The amplifier should be capable of dealing with any interference that comes down the mains. If it's not, it's a shit amplifier. So to propose that you need power conditioners is the most absurd nonsense you could have in terms of a claim for improving audio fidelity, which is very much measurable. And this is the point. Measuring things is not science. Now, a lot of these clowns out there that punt smoke and mirrors will claim science. And they're actually doing something, measuring, and presenting their data, which is great. It's just not science. Again, not enough for me to get involved and call foul. It's vernacular that is part of the general world's vernacular. They all use this magic trick when they're doing maths and claim science. Now you go, okay, fine. You know, it doesn't frustrate me to the point where I need to address them in a flat earth manner. But as I say, when it gets to a list of, I'm talking science, this is me talking on behalf third person for GR research, he's talking about science, and then talking about your denial of science being making you a flat earther. You know, at that point, that's the trifecta that gets you a response from a flat earther. And in this instance, he's not worthy of attack on flat earth level, but I know every little detail there is to know about his bullshit when it comes to mains conditioning cables. Utter horseshit. So it's like, fine, you know, you want to keep making videos and addressing flat earthers who don't believe your nonsense, then you're going to get a response that actually calls out your nonsense in hi-fi terms.
Yeah, that reminds me of the saying, don't throw rocks if you live in glass houses.
Yeah, if you're gonna go around punting your smoke and mirrors, to a degree I'll be sympathetic. It's like, yeah, you got to make a profit, right? And I get it. People need wire to up their margins. I get it. You got to make a living. So yeah, it's smoke and mirrors. But on the other hand, I've done it too. I was in the industry. I totally get it. So that gets a pass. Yeah, you could debunk it. Yeah, you could present measurements. Yeah, you could show it's all nonsense. But that's part of the industry. Why take away a man's meal when you don't need to? But moving that into the realms of you're an idiot if you don't believe me and you're a flat earther therefore, oh god, that's too far. Or is it? Well, it is when they start saying that what they've got is science. It's like, no, right, that's it now. Science, you're a flat earther if you don't believe me and you're not presenting any. Sod that.
No, it happens to all of us. It's happened to me on several occasions where the topic will come up and this is the way it comes out of the other person's mouth. Don't tell me you're a flat earther. I mean, that's already derogatory by the tonality and the way they say it. So it's a perfect opportunity to throw back and have a nice conversation. Oh, what do you know about it? You know, or why do you say it in that tone? I mean, it is derogatory when they do it. So it's like, okay, you just opened up yourself for a nice debate because happen to be a little bit knowledgeable here.
Just tell them until they give you some type of measured curvature, you're a flat earther as well. So, haha.
Yeah, you're a curvature without curvature.
The art of curve without curving.
So for anybody who's just joining us,
level is curved now, right?
For anybody who's just joining us, the subject at hand is flat Earth seeping into other non-flat Earth subjects on YouTube, and how you'll be watching as a flat earther a video, and then suddenly the subject will come up from a car YouTuber. You'll be watching a video about Top Gear style shoot-offs with second-hand cars, and then they're talking about how flat earthers think and feel. And you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it's filtering into all kinds of areas because they need to let people know through these little jibes that take at us that we're dumb people. We don't know what we're talking about. We're not into science. And it's all the pseudoscience people making up all this stuff, saying this about us. They don't even know what science is. They're denying science now.
Exactly. People who would claim we're deniers
it's just getting
chocolate.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
I was about to say, the people who claim we're deniers of science are the first people that will claim science where they aren't actually using the scientific method. It isn't science. But they'll be the first to claim it and then look down their nose at flat earthers. In this instance, us, where we actually do apply science to the claims that are being made about a sphere Earth. And what do we find? They're completely bogus.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Hey Nathan. Or they'll use, or while saying that, they'll wear a T-shirt that says "Not flat, we checked" from NASA.
Right.
Which is the complete antithesis. Sorry, I said that one wrong. From the truth. NASA didn't check from a sky vacuum because it doesn't exist. When NASA did check, they very clearly state that it's flat and stationary. They're talking about their aircraft.
Exactly.
And how it flies.
Exactly. If you had more than 25 seconds in the argument, you'd appreciate from us that the claims from NASA are all automatically debunked by the second law of thermodynamics. The sky is not a vacuum. If it was, the air we're breathing would expand in all directions to fill it, and we'd all be dead. Therefore, the sky is not a vacuum in violation of natural law. There is no trips to take pictures of the Earth from space. They have not checked anything. They've lied through their back teeth about an area that doesn't exist. that they claim to take pictures from, and they claim to travel to different rocks that are actually lights in the sky through. Well, if they can travel through the sky vacuum, the air that's expanding at high speeds can also expand into that area, and that's what gas does. We'd never develop pressure, we'd all be dead. Life would never have existed if the sky was a vacuum. We'd never develop pressure. Therefore, the sky vacuum's fake. Outer space is fake.
Right. Did you say they had a T-shirt that said NASA's checked?
So somebody sent him a T-shirt, and this is where this began several weeks ago. And he opens up the T-shirt and says, look, I don't really understand any of this. Someone sent me a T-shirt that says, Earth's not flat, we checked. And it's got it in a style of... Go on.
Wouldn't that then be an apparel to authority fallacy?
Yes, I suppose it was. It's not him that's checking. We checked. Who's we? The authorities.
Apparel to authority. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Chocolate. I was waiting for 10th, but no one else got it.
Missed that. I missed that. Sorry.
I missed it too. Go.
Over here, guys.
Well, Chocolate doesn't miss anything.
Just so people are clear.
Flatzoid said it best, is what you said. If Earth is closed, we can't go out. If it's open, we're all dead.
Exactly. They're either lying about travelling out to the second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum, in which case every single claim that they make is fake, or we're in a contained system. Now, we have gas pressure. That is proof that we are in a contained system, because without the container, there'd be no pressure. And if, as you can see on screen, this area, although it's cross-section cartoon like every single Sphere Earth picture, here we go, here's a better one. This is high-pressure gas, and this is 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum. Absolutely absurd. The gas would fill the space. If this is a vacuum, gas is going to be filling it. The space is fake. They haven't checked anything.
Indeed.
Just lied.
And when you ask them for a demonstration of a vacuum of any type, they have to put it in a container and take out all the air. So they can't even have a vacuum without a container to demonstrate here on Earth. And they want us to believe in this picture that there's nothing between the Earth and the sun there, and everything in between is a vacuum. And somehow magically the air hangs around the Earth.
Before we get to the end of this particular discussion, because we veered off away from the video that I made recently or this morning, I want to do a shout out to the guy whose chunk of video I used to debunk the claims about mains conditioners, and that's Ethan Weiner. So Ethan, obviously spelled as Ethan, but Weiner, W-I-N-E-R. And Ethan Weiner is possibly my favourite, if not my second favourite acoustician out there. Very straight-talking, ex-audio engineer, has set up multitudes of studios, done multitudes of recordings, wrote books that are used in universities to teach acoustics. The guy knows his stuff. Now, he also understands how to test things, and the equipment's industry standardised for testing. And he knows what to test, how to test it, and he explains in that video. The section that I used was the most concise version I could find that crammed almost everything I could think of that you can test when it comes to audio fidelity. Something that's been well established for hundreds of years now. In terms of the testing, for the last 80 years, we've had the ability to test this stuff. So there's not much outside the remit of being able to test and justify and show how things differ in terms of quality. So all this, you have to listen, bullshit. No, you don't. We know how to test. We know how to measure. It's not science. It's measuring. Nevertheless, that bullshit is used a lot, and Ethan Weiner dissects it, and he's, like I say, he's one of my favourites. He's absolutely fantastic. Check him out. Check out his Audio Myths workshop. There's a link to that directly below the video that I made this morning. So if nothing else, check out Ethan Weiner. He's brilliant, brilliant guy.
So Nathan, are you saying he gave you sound advice?
Yes, he did indeed. So many of the things that he talks about in terms of acoustically treating a studio, which I've been doing for the last 8 or 9 months, I've taken a lot of his advice and put it into practical application, put my money where my mouth is, bought stuff. So yeah, that's a testament to what he says, and he's taught me many things that I never thought I'd ever know. Having worked in studios, having worked with audio equipment for a good chunk of my life, he's still taught me huge amounts of things that I had no idea even existed as knowledge.
Keep talking, Nathan, because Sleeping Warrior is going to jump all over me right now.
Oh, okay.
Can I just say, Tenth, that your attempts at humour are really lowering the tone of the show.
Oh, I'll tell you what lowered my tone earlier, Tony, was your video, but boy, was I laughing.
Yeah.
I've
got to say, if the Blathers want to claim gravity is a force, even though we know it's not, then we can equivocate that and say that you must therefore accept that fish that isn't the most putrid fish is really quite acceptable. So I want to see them demonstrate it. So shout out to the fish company that's made a fortune. Do you know, since then I've looked up how expensive those fish tins are. 25 quid.
You know, it's supposed to be opened underwater. That's where the guy made the mistake.
When have you ever had smoked cats, Nathan?
I've eaten a lot of disgusting things in my time as a rep. So when you're out schmoozing somebody to try and get them to buy your product, if you're out in a foreign land, they'll take you to a high-class restaurant. They'll want to impress you as much as you want to impress them, just culturally the way it is if you're a guest in someone's country. And over the course of my time as a rep, the amount of things that I had to shovel into my mouth and go, that's delicious. Knowing full well that it was repugnant.
Cats was one.
Let's not. When I put it in comments, it's much nicer than when I say it verbally, Anthony. Let's just move on.
I'm just waiting for the spam. Nathan's a cat eater.
Yeah, I've eaten cat, I've eaten dog, I've eaten all sorts of horrible things. The most repugnant thing I can imagine that I ate was actually an egg, as opposed to similar process to what your is it mackerel? I forget the fish that's in that particular tin. Very disgusting.
Oh, the 1,000-year-old egg.
Yeah, I have. Yes, correct. A black egg. Correct. Fermented in its own shell, and it was repugnant. That was probably the most vile thing. And no, there was something else I ate in Hong Kong that was even more disgusting, and that was one of their. The reason Hong Kong's called Hong Kong is because Hong Kong loosely translates to fragrant bay. If you've ever been to Hong Kong, there's a massive bay, so obvious reason. But it stinks. And inside the bay, they've got crabs. And they catch the crabs, which are all diseased, and they serve them up as a delicacy. Especially, they've got to be the diseased ones, because they taste better. Right?
What the? Really?
So that was something else equally repugnant that I ate. And that particular time, that was one of the few times that my the director of the company was with me when I was eating those crabs in Hong Kong. And and I ate it and told the person I was schmoozing that it was delicious and thank you so much and wow, what hospitality. But my boss didn't. And afterwards I was like, why didn't you eat it? It's like, because it was disgusting. And I was like, yeah, but we're here to, you've got to show. And he's like, no, I don't. Gave me that look that was like, that's what I'm paying you for.
Very professional.
I guess the moral to the story is if they equivocate, like the gravity is not really a force, but they can think of it as a force, then they can also think of the not smelliest of fish to be, really quite placid and quite nice. So I look forward to that one, Blurthers.
All in the preparation.
Does it mean we can, if they start equivocating, are we just allowed to start going?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't watch that bit of the video. I didn't watch because I knew what was coming. But as soon as I saw him starting to open the can, I'm like, what are you doing? That's not how you prepare that. You're supposed to open it underwater because otherwise the smell is repugnant and that's what will linger in the air as you're eating it. So, it didn't prepare the food correctly. It's supposed to be, I've not eaten it. It's supposed to be quite nice. But if you open it underwater in a different place that you're going to actually consume it. But there we go.
But how about the juices, though? How about pouring that in a glass and then...
Do you know what? I watched a video. I watched about 8 of these last night, and one of the guys described the smell of the juice. He said it's like the juice that you get at the bottom of your bin.
Right, it's rotten, literally rotten.
Yeah, it's rotten. That's what it is. It's rotten. That's
fermentation.
Correct. Yes, correct. It's designed to ferment, rot, and in a particular way. So they're not adding enough salt to preserve it. That's the idea. Anyway, I
Just
don't
in
know how I
case you're
know about
wondering, it's
these horrible
called
foods.
Sustroming, and it's my most recent upload on my channel. Go and check it out. Sub if you don't mind it, because it's quite an interesting video.
I'm sure I've been offered
Well,
it. Which country is it native to? Because I'm sure I've been offered it.
Sweden.
Yeah, I've been in
Sweden.
Sweden. I'm pretty sure I've been offered it, but declined. So but that's probably why I know how it's supposed to be prepared, because it was probably sold or pitched to me at some point. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I think I'm going to pass on this one.
Well, if all they had to do was add salt, then that might have accelerated the process, Anthony.
Boom, boom.
If you come to England, the native dish, if you go anywhere at Northwest, if you go anywhere near Blackpool, it's rock. We don't give them the shit from the sea. We give them proper quality sugar candy. It's fine. Go to Sweden and they give you this disgusting stuff.
Right,
I heard in Iceland they got fish lollies.
Got a super chat from Godzilla37. It says, "A force is a force, of course, unless it's a horse that you can still think of as a force." Thank you very much for the super chat.
If gravity's not a force, but you can think of it as a force, that essentially means that anything can be anything if you just think of it as anything. So that means that I've not been vaccinated, but you can think that I have. So I don't need to wear any masks. I can go anywhere I want. I can breathe all over you because you think that I've been vaccinated.
No, you can't. Don't do that to me. Ever.
I won't.
I can breathe all over you.
Can you imagine being breathed all over with somebody that's just recently consumed surstroming? They would think that you've got an allergy.
Well, I think if you would eat surstroming and then breathe all over them, I think you would be rushed to the hospital because they think you'd probably be rotting inside.
I think they'd be rushed to hospital as well.
Maybe.
Did you notice the can? When he pulled out the can, because it's obviously expanded within the container, the can itself was bulging. Did you notice?
Yeah.
That's the gas expanding inside the container.
So even surstroming needs a container.
Yeah.
Well, the gas is trying to expand, and it's got so much pressure inside the can that it literally buckles the can.
Yep. Smell spreads in all directions.
I wonder why it's not a smelly from Sweden. You know, like the native smelly.
That's because it comes in parallel rays.
Right, let's do some housekeeping, right? Because otherwise we're going to have a completely very semi-flat Earth related. Anyway.
Look, I'm bringing flat Earth terms and baller terms into this. That's pretty good.
Any evidence?
No, it's I got to correct that, Nathan. I can't allow you to say that it's semi-flat Earth related. It's absolutely flat Earth related because the blurthers pretend that gravity is a force, even though it's expressly defined as an effect. Well, in that case, we can just say that smelly fish isn't the most smelliest of fishes, so we can think that it's somewhere in the middle. Would you like your fish on a plate, or would you like it straight out of the tin, blurther?
But they can think of gravity whatever they want because they have their own gravity. It's their colloquial gravity. Come on, you can't expect the general public to actually apply the official standards, do you? Come on.
Have we done the gas pressure without a container?
We've done any housekeeping questions.
Oh, well, ask that one next then. Let's move to that.
Next? First, you mean? Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Well, when we talk about gravity, right, they use the Cavendish experiment to make the claim or to illustrate or to an attempt to explain with experiments that mass attracts mass. Now, we all know that doesn't do that, but at least they've got an experiment that they claim that we can then pick apart. Given that we're in a gravitational field on their model, where is the experiment that's the equivalent experiment to the Cavendish experiment for gas pressure that's not, gas pressure that doesn't go into the available volume? Where is that? We're in it, right? So we're in a gravitational field. Where is the test that demonstrates gas pressure without a container? Where is it?
Well, they have their own Cavendish response to that, and that is the plasmoid thing being kept to a magnet. Remember? That's their Cavendish explanation for gas pressure.
Inside a nuclear reactor, is that the one you're on about?
I don't know.
So
And what
plasmoids.
plasma?
not-
Remember,
Yeah,
plasma.
it's inside a nuclear, it's inside a hydrogen fusion container.
Sounds like a container, but it also doesn't
it's
sound like a
hydrogen
gas.
Plasma, so it's all plasma has electromagnetic properties. So it doesn't
Right.
mean, yeah.
So it's
Yeah, it seems like a
completely
false
false,
equiv-
and that's why it's a perfect Cavendish explanation for gas pressure without a container, because it doesn't work. Do you understand?
Seems like a false equivalence, though.
Everything in the globe and all the arguments involved are false equivalents. That's how it's built.
That's what Arwen is saying. He's saying they use this false equivalence as their answer, and they're sitting up with their bow tie looking pretty when they haven't answered anything.
Yeah, when they can't show you something like that, they'll show you a diagram.
Say that again.
When they can't show you a false equivalency like that, like with a plasma being attracted to a magnetic field, which is completely false equivalency. When they can't show you something that is not a false equivalency, all they can show you other than that is a diagram.
What's wrong with diagrams? Ain't that science?
No.
Oh, okay.
So I guess the answer to your question, Nathan, is there is no experiment, given that we're in a gravitational field on their model, that demonstrates that it doesn't disperse. I just find that glaring omission huge.
It would disperse. That's why space is fake. Any evidence of a physical geometric spheroid horizon formerly known as Earth curvature?
Before we go there, the last thing Sleeping Warrior said was on their model. Well, they can have as many models as they want, but if none of them relate or work with reality, what do we call that model?
Pseudoscience.
Yeah.
The model formerly known as scientific.
What about the horizon formerly known as Earth curvature? We only have one horizon, and the horizon in their globe Earth geometric model is physical. But we've only got one, and it's non-physical. So, any evidence of Earth curvature, formerly known as
That's
geometric
not-
horizon?
Well, they still remember that argument and accept it, even though they can't use it anymore.
We wouldn't expect to see it, is what they say now, but they used to say it blocks the bottoms of boats and buildings when it was physical at one time.
They still do.
Well, then how could they say we wouldn't expect to see it?
Because they're countering an actual argument against it at that point.
So they're countering
But then they
themselves.
just forget about it right after so they can reassert it.
So
how
they're
it works.
countering them. So they're countering themselves then?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. For example, Tim Osman. Nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve when presented with the black swan.
Would maybe a change if that question, well, maybe it wouldn't be better, but maybe the question, is there any evidence that Earth has curvature to it? Because
Well,
same
Earth
question
does,
though.
Earth does have curvature topography. Yes, we
yeah,
have
but
hills,
maybe
valleys.
consistent curvature. I don't know.
No, but
maybe
we're
just
talking
give them a-
curvature that's consistent with a sphere. So if you're going to have curvature consistent with a sphere, you got to have a radius. So that's going to tell you that at 1 foot elevation, looking at the ocean, which water finds its level, the curvature, the horizon where the curvature should start, can be no more than 1.22 miles at a 1 foot observer height. Once that got debunked, we no longer have a radius or live on a sphere. It's all been made up.
Precisely. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Not of the Earth-based variety.
They just assume that they're looking south when they look at the southern rotation point. They don't demonstrate that it is south relative to all observers at the same time. They just assume that it's south because it's the thing they're looking at and they denote that to be south. That's just assumption that it is south when in real world it isn't south, and they've got an adjustment for it called declination to explain away why it is that we don't actually look south. I find it astonishing that they ignore this.
They also automatically assume that the south is antipodal on a spherical surface.
Correct, yeah. They assume that they're looking... Yeah, that's right. It's the same, basically the same point. That's true. I just find it outrageous that they just ignore this.
Well, this is their whole point. They always have assumed it because they must make it work on a sphere. So they're always assuming a sphere. They're always assuming a radius, and then they do funny math to somehow show it to you.
Right.
But the funny math doesn't work out.
Right. Globers are masters of presupposition. They know how to presuppose the Earth is a ball in the most elaborate fashion out there.
So this example is always going to be cemented in my mind because it's how I learned the formal logical fallacy of affirming the consequent, which is if P then Q, Q therefore P. If the Earth is a sphere, P, then we will observe star rotation in the southern hemisphere. That's Q. We observe star rotation in the southern assumed to be hemisphere. That's Q. Therefore, Earth's a sphere. P. If P, then Q. Q, therefore P. If Earth's a sphere, star rotation southern hemisphere, star rotation southern hemisphere, therefore Earth's a sphere. And it's always what goes through my mind when anybody affirms the consequent for anything. I always think of star rotation, because for many people they don't notice the trick, and when somebody drops in the word hemisphere, they don't realise that their opponent is automatically assuming that when you travel out towards the horizon in a southerly direction, that when you arrive at your destination you are antipodal from where you began, because you've merely assumed that the stars that were above your head in the north are now below where you were standing in the north when you arrive in the south, antipodal from where you began, by assumption only. So their example starts with the assumption that you're going to travel to the southern hemisphere. Like, well, hold on, you're supposed to be proving we're on a sphere, not assuming that I travelled to the bottom of one in your example, and then make an example and claim that it's only because of your assumption that we travelled to the bottom of a sphere that that's occurring at all. Affirming the consequent. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Now, the deepest hole that we've got is the called a super deep borehole, where seismology made 4 predictions, all 4 of which turned out to be incorrect. And that's the most data that we've got. It's about 7 miles deep, roughly. That's it.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there. So bright.
No. Again, they assume that the Venus is the same size as Earth. They assume that the Earth is... Yeah. So it's all assumptions. We just assume that it's a ball, therefore it is a ball. We assume gravity is a force, then it is a force. What gravity?
Any scientific evidence for the reification of gravity?
See, when you realise that the lightest known material known to man as far as Google's concerned is the aerogel stuff, and there's one now called Graphene aerogel. Shout out to Rachie with all the zeros for telling me about this. Graphene aerogel claims to be less dense than helium, but it doesn't rise. They say that they make an adjustment inside the composition of graphene aerogel that removes the air out of the product to make it essentially, on paper, lighter than helium. But in real world, it doesn't float, it still sinks. So when you realize that even objects that we can make that are supposed to be less dense than helium, they all fall, then that falling is falling for a reason, and it's because they're more dense than the medium that they're in. And we can prove it by giving the medium a bit of a wiggle. And if we manipulate that medium, it causes an object to accelerate. And therefore, it's now explained why we don't have gravity. Once you explain what the cause of the perception of gravity is, you don't need any science to explain this or to prove it. It's outside of science. It's now explained. So relative density is now kind of progressed from an explanation to a explanation. And that explanation now falls outside of scientific method, because now you are no longer ignorant. You know what the reason for why objects seem to accelerate on Earth. And it is because of that relationship between the matter and the medium it's in. Now you know that. We don't need to do any science on it.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Nah, Eddington was a fraud.
What? Just looking at stuff? That's not science.
According to Fight the Flat Earth, it is. He cites Eddington as a proof of gravity. He argues that it's a force in the same sentence as using Eddington, which was an observation only, as a proof, a supporting piece of evidence for gravity. The guy's a clown.
Is that it? Did we do all the housekeeping questions? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Anthony, did you say a minute ago that there is a type of aerogel that is claimed to be lighter than helium?
Yeah, but you're a bit quiet, Brian. Do you want to get a bit closer?
Sorry. Did you say a minute ago that there is an aerogel that is claimed to be lighter, than less dense than helium?
Yeah. The claim is that graphene aerogel is lighter than helium, but they put a really nasty. I'll read to you what it says from Wikipedia.
If
it's
not
outrageous.
light, then it can't be.
I know.
But that's a
again.
lie.
Hold on. Say
Has
that
to be a
again,
straight
Brian.
up lie.
I missed what you said.
I agree.
We don't know what we're agreeing to. You talked over each other. Brian, can you repeat what doesn't happen again?
Well, the claim that this type of aerogel is lighter than helium must be a lie if it's not rising, because anything that is more dense than air will not rise through it. But if it's of the same density or more or less, then it will rise.
That's why they gave it a nice caveat. Listen to Riley real quick.
Okay.
What I'll do, I'll put it on screen because this needs some discussion. Nathan, if you wouldn't mind presenting, I want to show this because this is basically weaseling. This is a brilliant example of weaseling. And I just want to show the audience because this is how they make something sound like something when it's not. It's a bit like the PCR testing. They make it sound like something it's not. I won't go into that, but this is what they're going to do. Do you see Aerographene on screen, Nathan?
I do.
Anybody? So it says Aerographene or graphene aerogel is, as of April 2020, so we're bang up to date, the least dense solid known at 160 grams per meter cubed. Less than helium. It is approximately 7.5 times less dense than air. So that claim, if it's less dense than air, it's going to act like helium or hydrogen. It's going to rise. But then it says, note that the cited density does not include the weight of the air incorporated in the structure. It does not float in air. That's like saying gravity is not really a force, but you can calculate it as though it's a force, in my opinion. What do you guys think about that?
This? No.
Well, it seems to suggest like it's a very thin substance that is basically pocketed with air.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So in the same way as... hold on, Anthony. In the same way as you've got something like shaving foam, which is a solid with gas dispersed through it, what they're saying is that this has got air dispersed through it. So you've always got the density overcoming it with the density of air that's in between the gaps of this less dense material.
Okay, so that would imply that the air that they take out of it is acting like an anchor to it. But if they take that air out of it, then what are they doing? Are they leaving it as a void with nothing in it, or are they replacing it with what?
Well, I would
because it still doesn't make sense.
Well, maybe then the properties of it being that light has something to do with the structure of it, and that if they would actually make it that pure material, then it wouldn't be that low density anymore. You know, it's complicated stuff.
It's a bullshit claim. Yes. Basically, if you listen to it, it's a bit like saying that my can of beer that's made out of super light aluminium is less dense than the beer that's in it when I subtract the beer that's in it. Do you see what I mean? You're adding one thing, which because the structure of the graphene is so microscopically small, but it still forms a structure that's probably held together by the air. They're just claiming that structure, the little bit that the graphene takes up, is weighs less than the corresponding weight of everything in that whole space as it would have been, which I suppose technically it would be if you could have the aerographene in a vacuum, then you would be weighing it there. But then, of course, it wouldn't still float because you've took away the medium.
Well, the only way to
so
test
it's just
this,
a bullshit claim, isn't it? It's
well,
a way
unless
of
you
just...
could validate it by you could evacuate the chamber, put your graphene in, and then you fill it with helium, right? And if it is less dense, then it should float up to the top of the helium.
No,
That's what I think.
Because the claim they're making is it'll fill with helium because they're just small gaps. The gases will go in between the structural bonds and fill it. That's how aerographene works. It's because there's so many little air pockets that the heat can't dissipate through it.
I see. So you're
so
saying
it would just fill up with helium and therefore would still weigh more than the corresponding space to the helium because you've got the helium plus the graphene. But
they're saying they've got a solid
graphene
structure that when it's split up and very fine, you can, like if you get some of that stuff that you make cobwebs out of for Halloween, it starts off as quite a chunky bit of cotton wool looking stuff, and then you tease it and tease it and tease it till it gets thin like spider's webs, right? Well, when you've done that, you've obviously got stuff dispersed between it. But it's like, well, no, the density of the fibre web, if I say that in a square centimetre is X density, you're like, well, yeah, it is. But the overall density of the material is still more dense than the air it's in. You're just saying that if you take the overall amount of material that's so thin in a given area, it's actually calculated as less dense if you take the air out of the equation. But you can't because it's always going to be dispersed with whatever gas it's situated in. Therefore, it's not less dense. It's just a Weasley way of saying it's less dense because it's very finely distributed over a given area, correct?
Yes.
I agree. You can't say.
I think it's a big...
They can't make the claim. They can't make the claim that it says that it's less dense than helium, if it does not float in air. That's a direct contradiction, in my opinion, and I think that that's misrepresentative. And it's basically bullshittery from people that want to make this sound better than what it is, probably for NASA to buy it off them or whatever. But the point is, if you're going to claim that it's like one thing, but really it's not, that's lying.
Well, it's an equivalent. See if this works. So, in the same way, if you take it to a different extreme, you say, well, an iron anvil will float on mercury. However, if I take the same exact material, the iron, and make it like my spider web, make it really thin and wispy, same material, but really thin and wispy, and I go, well, that's not going to float on mercury. And you go, yeah, it would. It would still float, right? It doesn't matter that the material can get in between the gaps. It would still float because it's a less dense material. So therefore, if it doesn't float, i.e. the gaps just fill up, it's a bit of a false equivalence because we're talking about liquid rather than gas between, but it's still close enough for me to make this comparison. I would suggest that regardless of how thin you made that material, it would still float on the mercury. It would never sink between it because of the gaps. Am I wrong?
No. But this is... I think this claim is lies. I'll tell you why. Because the material itself is said to be lighter, less dense than helium. And the claim that it doesn't rise because air goes within it. Well, air is the same density as air. The material is supposedly less dense than helium. If you put helium in a balloon, the balloon itself is more dense than air. But because of the air and the helium, it rises. The air outside and the helium inside, it rises. So technically that air should be displacing that, if that was true. I call it total BS on that whole claim.
Yeah. If it's lighter than air, it should displace the air. You don't need the helium.
Well, yeah, because the other thing they're implying that the air is acting like an anchor in the substance. And it's like, at the end of the day, it still comes back to, if they're going to claim that it's less dense than helium, then the way to demonstrate that is to put it in air and see does it float. If you're going to weasel around with the maths to make an adjustment for why it doesn't do it, then the claim must fail. It's that simple.
Right, now relate this to gas pressure without a container. Otherwise, this was pointless.
Well, so gas pressure. No, it was to do with. Wasn't it to do with gravity?
I don't know. You've got to loosely connect this to a claim that's actually made on the show, or to do with flat Earth or globe Earth now.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was to do with gravity. Once you realise that the least dense materials, that even are claimed to be less dense than helium, still go down because essentially they are not less dense than helium. But now that you know that, then it's no longer something that's needed in science because it's now explained. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove something that's already explained. It's demonstrable. It's repeatable. But it's already explained. You now know that you don't need gravity.
Well, this claim, I will take a shot at. This claim that this material is less dense than helium completely debunks the claim of gravity, because gravity is supposed to be bringing things down, but helium or anything that's like helium, helium, hydrogen, anything that's where helium is, let's say like in the balloon where it's gathered together, then their claim is that due to buoyancy, which is based on the gravity mass attracting mass equation, it's displaced up to it, right? So how come this is not being displaced? Due to their buoyancy, which is part of their mass attracting mass, even though that's completely out of date. You know what I'm saying? So this claim of this thing doing what it is and doing what it does, it is a debunking of the claims of their own model. Or the mainstream model, sorry.
I see. I get it.
I think, Nate, the only thing in terms of density is, I would say, is the Aerographene set up in a structure. And if you think of it a bit like Meccano sort of thing, if you were to take down all the Meccano and stack it back up to put it back in the box, then it'd be very dense, wouldn't it?
Right.
When it's in that structure, a lot denser.
Right. Exactly. So if you take each connecting part of this graphene or whatever it is, you'd say, well, you just take one strand and calculate the density based on the area that it's in for that one strand, and you probably find that it's actually quite dense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly as I understood it, Adam. Excellent stuff. Meanwhile, gravity itself is currently described as the bending of a conceptual medium based on the uneven distribution of mass mathematically. So nothing to do with any forces pushing things up or down. Everything to do with conceptual mediums being bent. And you can't see a conceptual medium. We don't exist in a conceptual medium. A conceptual medium is merely something used to do maths. Nothing to do with reality. That's gravity currently. No challenge from anyone in Discord on this gravity?
Yeah, it must be a bit of a bummer to now have gravity explained. Falls outside a scientific method because it's explained. It's the phenomena that we observe doesn't actually exist. That must be a bit of a bummer if you're a blurther, because don't you need that on your model? Don't you need that to explain certain stuff? Well, a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's not science anymore, guys. It's explained.
Weird how they use it to explain stuff when often the thing that they're using it to defend. I've heard flat earthers in the past say, oh, gravity's just like the magic word they use to explain everything. Well, yeah, it is. They just blurt it out whenever there's something difficult that they can't explain. But it's very rarely actually applied in terms of what gravity really is. And half of them don't even know what it is. That's the conclusion. More than half don't know what it is.
Yeah, gravity at present in their model is apparent orbits. That's actually
Yeah, apparent orbits. They're not actually orbiting. They're going in along a straight geodesic path, which kind of indicates like a Mercator projection, which is like a square map or rectangular map, where it indicates that they're traversing over us in straight lines and then looping back round Pac-Man style. I'm not saying that that's what's going on, but that is the implication when he says that the geodesic paths are straight. It's like, so what is going on then? Maybe he wasn't telling lies. Maybe that is what's going on, and we're just, I don't know, but it's definitely not orbits.
Yeah, and how can they have it? Sorry, go on, Nathan.
It wasn't me. I was hoping.
Sure.
I was going to encourage you, actually, Brian, to explain the current This is relatively new information to me in terms of how gravity is defined with orbits, but if you can launch into that, I'd be very grateful at this stage because it's useful for the audience.
Yeah, no hassles. Albert Einstein in 1915 said that the uneven distribution of mass causes the curvature of space-time. The curvature of space-time, is claimed to be gravity. Gravity is claimed to be the curvature of space-time, and the effect that we are told we will see or observe is apparent orbits. That is that. Einstein never defined clearly what he meant by effect, other than saying apparent orbits, and he never defined what he meant by the word mass. So that is gravity at present. Is that okay, Nathan? Nathan?
Yes. Sorry, my mute button. There's a few people who were off mute while you were saying that. Nobody's piped up from Discord, though.
Hey, you guys. Good morning.
Yeah.
Discord.
There you go. I knew someone wanted to add something. Go ahead, Stigoli.
Well, I think I talked over Truth Be Told. I was trying to get one of these ballers in here. Ratio Swan is talking a lot of stuff in the chat. Hop in VC, man.
Yeah, I wanted to add something earlier, but it's not about the current what so-called gravity is, but Newton's gravity. I mean, I've been trying to read through it, and from a layman's point of view, it's quite daunting. I'm talking about the Principia, right? But the title of it is intriguing for me because in the Principia, obviously, it's written in Latin, right? But the translation of it, it's weird. It's mathematical principles. Now I'm thinking, am I understanding that incorrectly, or you know what I mean? If is it all based on maths, or what is it? Maybe I'm not really clued up to understand that.
No. Maths because it's maths.
Well, I would say most of the translations of the Principia, as it comes from Latin, what can happen is the belief system that was based around it then changes the translations, because it's like the words gravitas and masse mean gravitas means weight or heavy in Latin. It's just a description, and masse means a large amount of something. Right, that's basically what it means. There is a few other meanings to it, strangely enough, in Latin as well, but the basic of it is a large amount of something, or accumulation of matter type thing. But if you have a belief and you're in 2021 translating that, your belief is going to color the translation. And if there's mathematics in it, the mathematics are based on weight. It's about weight, what causes weight, and why things are heavy or not heavy. And it's basically an unfinished work, really, in a lot of ways, because Newton could never get to the bottom of, I don't think, or at least it was claimed that he never got to the bottom of what he was trying to find out. That would be, you have to take that into account if you're looking at the Principia, because in Latin, a lot of words are brought, sorry, in English, there's a lot of words that are brought from Latin, but they are then changed in their definition. So people will take their belief when they hear the word gravitas, they put in the word gravity and straight away make it into a force of attraction between masses. Whereas gravitas doesn't mean a force of attraction between masses. It's just a description of heavy or weight. You know, examples like that. Examples like that is what will cause a bad changeover linguistically, if you know what I mean.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Mad thanks to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
An hour to find parking. You believe this crap?
You're in New York, man. Can't complain.
That
I'm
question,
going to parking lots. Got lots all over.
the goalie was fishing and he had a bite.
What was that?
Sorry.
Yeah. Ratio Swan says any formal scientific inquiry makes the physics of flat Earth completely arbitrary and inconsistent. Tell us all about it. Come off mute.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Well, yeah, his side also said science doesn't prove things.
Eli, that's why you used him as an intro.
I know he's not.
Hold on, say again, Eli.
I know he's not. I know he's not, but I'm pretty sure he's probably talking about theoretical physics.
If science doesn't prove anything, then it hasn't proved that the Earth's a sphere, then, right?
That's what I hear whenever I hear that. Funny though,
Yeah.
because they used to say body of science proves we live on a ball. Things done changed, didn't they?
And they realised that there wasn't any. Come on,
Yeah.
ball Earth.
No,
Share
they're
your
not.
pain.
They've been decreasing since January of last year because the black swan came and their arc, their curvature has been looking more like a straight line, and they're afraid to come on.
Yeah, the simple fact is they can't come on anymore. They have to pretend that they're on protest, and they have to take up slots in Discord so that new people can't come in. That's all they're doing, and we just laugh at it. It's outrageous.
It's gotten so comical because when they come on, they die much quicker now. The arguments are tight on their side, and they know if they come on, they'll be embarrassed, and they don't want Nathan to use them in the premiere show at the beginning of a show, and everyone laughing at them.
Not necessarily. You know, as I say, Stigali's got his fishing hook out, and everyone else is piping up when there's a silence for the guy to actually respond to him.
Well, I'm just talking about the last year plus. I've been seeing a trend towards this, that they won't come on like they used to, and their arguments have been soundly defeated. That it's like, if I'm a baller, if I was a baller, I ain't going on that show. I'm gonna look like rumpus after they're done with me.
They can't really come on. They know. They just don't like it. Therefore, they have to keep away.
Yep.
Doesn't change the truth, though, does it?
No, I like the show better without them. We get into subjects deeper and nicer, and it's G-rated. Everyone could hear it now.
I'll have one last bash, Stigali.
Yeah, I just want them to get out of the chat too. Like, don't talk all this stuff in the chat, and you can't come in and you're in voice chat. You just need to come off mute. But I see he's not even chatting anymore, so I totally scared him away, him or her. Mission
Don't
accomplished.
moderate them, though.
I blame the G Plus panel. They all piped up. He came off mute. I heard some cracklings.
Yeah, he had a chance, I think, though, too. They gave him a chance.
Last call. Black Swan.
He
Did you
did
want to?
get.
Did you want to address what Stigoli put to you? Now's your time. Hopefully, I'll keep everyone else off your back. Ratio Swan. That Ed.
Ed Masto.
He did
It's
get
Ed
thoroughly
Masto.
destroyed on Ladies' Night, you know. So I mean, he's
How did he get
probably
on?
tired of the limelight.
I noticed Gem Panda didn't do particularly well on Ladies' Night. Thanks to Brian, I got the link to find where he was. He was only in for about 5 minutes, and they basically kicked him out for trolling. I think that's how they perceived his interaction. So he kind of got drowned out, and I was like, well done, girls.
I can pun with that easy. They go to ladies' night because they want to dress up their arguments and skirt the issue.
Wow, double pun.
He kind of got frozen out of the conversation. It was very interesting to see how they dealt with him.
It's not his first time there, so.
I'd say it's what he wants. He wants to get frozen out. So in the way he got it, so it makes it look like he got kind of kicked out without making these arguments. But that's because if he makes these arguments, it starts looking bad for him because they all get pummeled.
Yes, they all want to plead the tactical foul so that they can make us into the villain.
Yeah, we're supposed to be the bad guys.
What argument? How could I be begging the question if I didn't ask a question? That one.
No,
Yeah.
but you know, on
You
top
gotta
of that, no one was talking. Well, not no one was talking to him, but when I said you're begging the question, I wasn't talking.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Bit distant.
I hear him fine.
Yeah, I said when because I was the first one to say you're begging the question. I wasn't even talking to him.
Yeah, but when they hear these phrases, they know who's being referred to. Well, you're begging the question. That's gonna, in their mind, go, well, obviously they mean me, right? Who else around here begs the question, Eli?
Where'd you go, Eli?
Sorry, Nick, can't go on that. Go after.
No, I just said, where are you, Eli?
Begs the question. I didn't ask a question.
I'm sorry.
You know, somebody said
was
that the day after on Saturday. Somebody said that. I said, you know, you begging a question. He was like, I didn't ask a question. It's like, what? Oh my God. It's spreading.
Did somebody else say it?
The very next day. Yep.
Oh my God. Hopefully it'll catch on.
I was in shock. I was like, did he really just say that?
It's already misused. Societally, people will say, which begs the question, when they mean which raises the question of. So it's often misused anyway.
Seems like it's another quiet day at the office, eh, Nath?
By me, I sat back, feet up.
Well, until you just ruined it.
What do you think of that graphene aerogel, John? They claim it's less dense than helium, but doesn't float in air.
What the hell are you talking about?
So you know aerogel, that light blue stuff, right?
Aerogel, yeah, I've heard of it.
They've got a new one out now that's like a refined version of, not a superseded version of, a refined version of, and it's made it lighter, and it's gone from being 6 times more dense than the medium than air to now being lighter than helium, However, it doesn't actually float in air because they make a mathematical adjustment where they remove the air from out of the process mathematically to explain why it is lighter than helium but doesn't float in air. In other words, they're making a claim that they've got to apply a bit of maths to substantiate, and then in the real world, it doesn't do what they say it does. You've got to apply a bit of maths to make it do it that way. So it's not lighter than air, but you can think of it as lighter than air.
Oh God, how did we ever get here? When's your birthday?
Right?
Pardon?
When's your birthday?
August.
When's my birthday?
Yes.
It's the end of September.
Yeah, that figures. What's your favorite color?
Oh God.
Well, I'm a
it's
Liverpool fan, so it should be red, but I actually like blue.
You see how I could get you right off topic real easy?
This has got a connection though to gravity claims. So.
Oh goodness, is there some more gravity claims out there now?
So yeah.
What, aerogel?
Spiders.
There are a lot of gravity claims, but they're hard to pick up.
Spiders as well.
Oh, spiders. Yeah, the spiders. Yep.
I thought that was a joke, you know. I thought I was being wound up.
Oh, getting wound up. I'm a little slow, sorry. It's early.
I think Nathan, you're spinning a yarn right now.
No, honestly, I thought for a few moments, I thought, have they collaborated to come up with the most crazy nonsense possible and punt it as real and being argument worthy, and then I realised, no, this is actually being claimed. This is actually being used.
You were hoping your spidey sense picked up on a little ruse, but you found out they really meant it.
Exactly. You think this is a joke, right? They're just having me on. They're doing it just to see if I'll buy it and let it become a discussion point. No, this is actually a discussion point, isn't it? Oh my God.
To see if you'll buy it. And it's not ruse, it's ruse.
Ruse.
I'm a foreigner.
I knew you were going to fall back to that. Isa could tell you. What's up, Isa?
Hey, what up, Quantum? How you doing, brother?
Is it a ruse or a ruse?
Ruse.
There you go. See?
Yes.
You just rused my whole statement.
His problem, he's not American.
No excuses.
Hey, there's a French thing, Moulin Rouge.
I've heard that before. Where did I hear? Was that a movie?
Moulin Rouge.
You're thinking of the French Connection. You're thinking of the French Connection, 10th man.
No, I'm thinking of Ruse and Rouge.
Yeah, Rouge. I know, brother. What? I got you.
Now, wasn't that a movie, Moulin Rouge?
Yeah, it's a whole big gay extravaganza, I think.
What?
No, it's about girl.
No, it's can dancing, man. It's frilly knickers.
Yeah.
I have to look this up. We got a bunch of wisecrackers on here today.
That's a real term too, frilly knickers.
I've been to the Moulin Rouge. It was extortionately expensive and very cramped. And
that's where it becomes a ruse.
That was a movie. I knew it was.
Well, let's just move
right,
on to the next question.
Oh, that was a musical. Yuck. I'm thinking of something else. Nothing. I'll tell you what. There's nothing worse than rap except maybe musicals. So those two things, they're terrible.
Is this weak bait?
No, there's nothing worse than flat Earth rap.
Okay.
That's a fucking.
So you got any more etymological fallacies for us?
Well, I mean, I could still harp on with my my position about the definition of gravity, because we were in a conversation, or when I was here last, and it kind of struck me because I'd asked somebody, does the term gay still mean happy?
Oh God, we're
Yes, it
going
does.
down this road again.
Hold
Didn't you have
on,
enough
hold
the
on,
first
hold
time?
on. Because
Yes,
what I
it
was
does.
thinking was like, let's say you got some like 80-year-old person, and are we like? Actually, if I remember correctly, somebody actually said no, it doesn't mean that anymore.
Yeah, it does.
And I thought to myself, that's fucking bold. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, it doesn't mean that anymore. It's like, well, I mean, somebody who's older might think that it means that and not have any indication of the new connotation to it. But I'm not trying to
Only
belabor the
unhappy
point. But I
people
just thought
don't
it'd be
believe that. And what about your tree with the stars?
What about it?
I want to know more about that.
Oh, do you?
Well, my theory is this: if you go all over the earth, right, you're gonna see trees, and you're gonna see the golden ratio and pine cones and shit like that, right? So, to me, being that a tree is the most almost common thing on or across the plane, um, I could envision in my mind there would be, if you really want to break it down, I mean, like I look at it like, let's say you had a mountain in the center, North Pole. And let's say instead of identifying it as a mountain, identify it as a tree. And the thing is that you can't see it because it accepts all color. This is why they have the dew line, right? You can't fly above it. You can't do it because you might run into this thing that you potentially can't see because ultimately when you experience color, you're experiencing what the object doesn't have, right? If I'm not mistaken on
I
that
thought we were
optical.
talking about a tree. Now you're onto color.
Right, because it's a complicated situation. Can you
Magical
follow along or
invisible
should I
tree,
digress?
Kent.
You know what I mean? Well, my thing is this.
Keep on going. Keep on going.
Well, my thing is this, right? Just that imagine that the sun, right, for instance, was not a physical object, but a reflection of something that was emitted from the center. And it would kind of ride the
Center of
dome
what?
like what's that?
Center of what?
I mean, what our experiential electromagnetic plane seems to indicate, like the center of the North Pole, that central point that we can circumnavigate the Earth with. You know what I mean?
The magnetic north?
Sure, magnetic north, and it fluctuates too, like a tree would kind of sway in the breeze. That's how I
I see.
envision magnetic north.
This guy is flat out's Tim Osmond.
It does seem that way, doesn't it? So you
Well,
use
I
the
don't
word
understand
imagine a
why you
lot.
would
Do you have
criticize.
any
I
proof?
mean, like, you think I'm joking when I proposed it, or when I was proposing
No,
it last
you
week?
said
But I'm
imagine a
telling you,
lot. Do
it's
you
like
have any proof?
something I thought out. What's up?
Do you have any proof, or are we just going to imagine with you?
I mean, I don't have any proof, nor do I give a shit to explain this, really. But I'm just trying to say,
Oh,
you
well, then
asked,
forget
right?
it. Sorry I even asked.
Cool.
I don't want to imagine it. This is a physics show.
Well, prove it's flat then, bro. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna fucking like.
Well, that's easy.
I mean, like, because you have to see. Because the problem is this: is like you have topography, which
You don't want me? You don't want to
immediately
follow
makes
up?
Earth not flat.
I said it was.
Right?
I said it was easy. You don't want to follow up?
What?
You said prove that it's flat. I said that's easy, but you just kept talking.
This should be interesting because you both got the same proof. I don't know if you are. I know you are unaware of
Right. This is the point. This is my whole philosophical point.
Hold on,
How you
hold on,
doing,
Issa.
Nathan?
Issa.
Like, this is why I've always said
Issa.
it's a philosophical issue.
Hello.
It's not
Issa.
about.
Issa. Hello. Go ahead, 10th
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, Esau, as Nathan says, 90% of the world or Western world and everything we see from the media is telling us we live on a globe that has a curve. And the black swan destroys that model. And since water is used for leveling, spirit level, all kinds of levels, and sea level is not sea curve, water tells us that it's level, flat plane that we live on, minus topography of mountains, valleys, etc. And even when they
But
go
how are
up
you going to negate topography?
hang
if we're going
on,
to talk
are
about
you
flat
going to let me
Earth?
finish? Are you going to let me finish? So even when we go as high as an airplane, and which all of us have done, we've never seen this curve. And then when you go in these images, 4K images from weather balloons, we don't see any curve whatsoever. So, yeah, the Earth is not a curved surface. And the sextant proves that, because you can't get an angle off of a curve. You need two straight lines. So it's over for the ballers.
Right, but it's not over for the tree in the centers, right?
It's not over for the
Well,
tree.
it is.
I love it.
Yeah, okay. So, dude, you're fighting the
It
wrong
is the
battle.
Sahara
Yeah,
Desert and other
gonna have
deserts
to-
where they don't have trees.
Right, we've heard enough, I'm afraid, Issa. While this might be an interesting discussion point elsewhere, when you go to imagination land and you don't care about anybody having physical proof provided because that's not what you're about, then it's not going to go over here, as was correctly
Right. Oh,
identified.
no. Hey, I agree 100%. I mean, that's why I open my head up to these ideas. And I'm not trying to prove my opinions about the unprovable. Because I would dare say it's just that you're winding with the same set of facts. It's interesting. I was thinking about this regarding law, because someone who thinks versus someone who doesn't think and looks at the facts is going to be given the opportunity to interpret. There's an element of interpretation needed. And if all the facts can be used by both sides, then I just think I mean, granted, I would of course bring up black swan negates, like let's say seeing boat school over curvature. I'm with you on all that shit. But like I just mean like I forget, I'm losing my train of thought with it. But like
so are we.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'll stop then. I'm all right.
Okay, we're dealing with the physical and natural world only. That's what we're interested in, because the argument has been utilising claims in the physical and natural world. It's a claim about our physical and natural world. So in counter to that, or in opposition to that, we're just holding people to task in terms of their globe Earth rhetoric based on the physical and natural world, what we can actually observe and see. So no offence, Issa, and yeah, obviously everyone's entitled to their worldviews, their opinions, and their I was going to say something derogatory. I won't. But yeah, when you talk about trees, we can't see.
Nathan,
yeah, we can't see them.
Well, I'm on board with you guys, man. Like I'm on board with. I mean, I've been like, I would imagine arguing for flat Earth for fucking what, since 5 years now, 4 years. You know what I mean? Like, I understand it. My thing is that I also just, I am enamored at this point, and I guess always have been, with the more of the philosophical thought processes regarding this, because I had a hard time digesting, why people could see curve versus why I can't. So, like,
if you have a hard time, digesting,
take
some Alka-Seltzer.
Well, I mean, I just look at it like the idea that I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna die on the mountain of flat Earth regarding my opinions about the world. You know what I mean? And that's just my opinion about it. But I think it's a worthy discussion. And what's so sad is that we've been so attacked throughout the years trying to have this discussion. That's what I'm trying to quell. I want freedom of speech. I want my right to be able to be a tree. Like I don't know. I mean, I want my fucking right to be able to that, even amongst people. This
You
is what
want the
irritates
right
me
to
is
be
that,
a tree?
Well, pardon me one second. We're considered like a fringe group of society by taking these positions, and the idea that we would then be locked into a fringe perspective and be upset with alternative perspectives is, to me, hypocritical of the whole movement in itself.
Yeah, but Isa, what you're saying,
you know what I'm saying,
is flat earthers. Hang on. What you're saying is flat earthers are a fringe group. But if I want to be a tree, that's even more fringe. What do you mean by that?
I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
want the freedom to be a tree. I don't even understand that.
I agree. As a devout Jewish black woman who follows Islam, I've got to defend your right to want to be a tree.
Stop influencing.
Well, I mean, I'm not arguing to be a tree. Like, is this why it gets me? It's like flat earthers are so dogmatic that these ideas are above them.
Nathan, you just went out on a limb on that one. Let me tell you.
Don't oppress me.
Well, my thing is that it's interesting to me that so many flat earthers have become dogmatic in reaction to a dogmatic system. So it's a bunch of reactionaries, and it becomes a nonstop,
So
loop.
when
You know
use the
what's wrong with
scientific,
you, Isa?
what?
They start
Let's
to
get
form a
specific.
politicized front. Yes, it's only logical because the other front is rigid after all.
so the scientific method is not dogmatic, Isa?
Yeah, get specific. What bunch of flat earthers have become dogmatic? Okay, which flat earthers and what topic is being dogmatic on?
I don't
Well,
care.
I
We're
mean,
not.
like you accept the superimposition of gravitation onto the term gravity.
I do what?
You guys impose the modern position of the term of gravitation onto the term gravity, and don't see what I'm talking about regarding that. I just think it's interesting that you would join them in adding all of that to that term.
We're debunking it, Issa.
You
Hold on.
think they're separate?
But that's
Hold on,
my
hold on.
opinion, man.
Issa. No, we're debunking it. And in order to debunk it, we need to recite back what it is. If you're saying, well, what's being defined as gravity, you're using that. No, we're defining it as it's defined so that we can debunk it.
Sorry, Nathan.
I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? I just think for myself, when I'm arguing these issues, I deal with the idea that we're mislabeling the use of gravity, and whereas we should be discussing gravitation. And I think that disarms a lot of people when you're discussing with them.
We're mislabeling what they mislabeled?
What's wrong with you, Isa, is you're looking for an intellectual niche for you to fit.
What's wrong with me? Okay, dude. Like, where the
I
fuck
think he's
is your
trying to
fucking
call
hubris?
us cis scientists.
Yeah, let him respond to that. You want me to repeat it?
A little more politely, if you would, brother.
I want you to poison the
Why,
well
like?
before you start.
Why would I do that?
The problem with you isn't the best way to start, is all he's saying, I think, Brian.
Yeah, but why should I have manners with someone who is not having manners?
How am I not having manners, dude?
That's a different discussion.
The last show. The last show.
Different
Isa,
discussion.
The last show.
Not just the last show.
It happened on my show too.
Right, let's get this back on track.
Oh, here we
Let's
go.
get back on track. Isa, if I'm defending the claim that we have Earth curvature, or let's reverse it. If you're defending the claim of curvature and you're describing how
I'm
it's
not.
I'm not just giving you an example.
Okay,
try
forgive
to
me. Here we go,
try
bro.
to contain yourself. So if I'm giving you an example, right, that is a globe Earth, and you're defending that example, and you repeat back to me what the claim is, i.e. Earth has curvature, and then you debunk it, and then someone from the sideline comes along and says, what you're describing as Earth curvature when you sum up their position and debunk it isn't what I call Earth curvature. What I call it is, and then I describe something different. And you turn around and go, yeah, but the Western world understands what Earth curve is when it's said. Likewise, when the majority of the Western world hear the word gravity, they don't think incoherent dielectric acceleration, for example. Nobody does that, in fact. In fact, the number of people who do that I could probably count on the amount of digits I've got on my body.
People are not going to latch onto something that's called incoherent very easily.
Nothing wrong with the terminology for incoherent dielectric acceleration, which I absolutely accept. I've seen enough about it now for me to say, yeah, that's a thing. Here you go. I've seen plenty of examples of it. I think it's absolutely a thing. But in the same way as Coriolis is not the conservation of angular momentum, gravity is not incoherent dielectric acceleration. These are very different things, and they have different titles.
Okay.
And I agree. Well, yeah, Nathan, that's my point in the sense that I look at that perspective about gravitation versus the term gravity. I think they're very different titles, but we've superimposed and allowed them to superimpose the conversation of gravity onto the gravitation onto the term gravity. And by arguing that point with them without addressing that semantic first, I think we join them in the cacophony of gravity, because you can't be like atheists are religious because they're against, you know what I mean? Like a religion. I don't know.
Where does the
Let me
word
try again.
gravitation
Sorry,
come
Tenth. Let me
from?
try one more time. So it's kind of akin to saying It's the difference between me saying Earth curve and curvature, which is very different, right?
Right. I wanted to ask, what is
I
the
win.
exact difference
Oh,
between
God.
the two?
So,
Well,
Issa,
I mean, I understand what you mean, but there's also to me, it's just. I mean, I don't know. To me, I don't see the correlation too much, but I understand what you're saying in the sense that there's Earth curve in the sense that you could be talking about Earth as a whole or rolling hills. You know what I mean? Like Earth curvature. I mean, I don't know. It's semantics and it's how you put it. You're right. It's about like if you're in a physics discussion and you're colloquially using the term gravity, I get it. And I get that this is a physics show and it is taking it that step. My point is I would hope that it wouldn't be overlooked. That there's
what
this
wouldn't?
super
No, that's fine.
instance.
That's fine. What
That's all
wouldn't be
my
over? That's fine. What's the thing that's being overlooked? What's being overlooked?
The fact that we're discussing gravitation.
Gravity,
And
gravitation, curvature, Earth curve. I don't understand. They're the same thing.
No. Well, no. My point being, like, I mean, I don't really. I can follow that you're trying to imply there's a difference between Earth curve versus Earth curvature, maybe or maybe not. I get it. You know what I mean? There could be a way to look at it that there is no difference. That they're also, but there is. I get it's complicated, but the point is, in this case, there's two different terms. Or I guess like, gravity. Well, not really. You're right on the money. Gravity,
What's the
gravitation.
difference?
I just think gravitation is the effect of what this, either Newtonian or whatever. That's the gravitation. Gravity, etymologically, historically, still in my mind, and I would imagine in the fucking dictionary, just means weight.
That's gravitas.
But we've superimposed it.
We covered
We've
that last time.
superimposed gravitation to this discussion,
We
right?
covered this last time.
I'm
That's
not.
gravitas.
It's really irrelevant. I'm just here to say
Different
hi. It's all
word.
good.
It's a different word.
Could I
That
just
is a
ask you,
different
sir,
word.
is there a difference between gas pressure and pressurized gas?
No. Right. Look, yes, but the good example of the same thing. Gravitas, right, is an etymological fallacy. If you say gravity means weight, no, gravitas means weight. It's an etymological fallacy. We covered this last time, Issa.
Right, but it's like because
It's not a
that's
literal
Italian and this
translation.
is English. Because that's Italian and this is English. There's just one word in my, granted,
It's not a
gravitas
literal
is-
translation.
All right. Well, hey, you know what, man? It's all good. Whatever you want, dude.
Esau, if you say weight, you may go better, but when you say gravity, you're not saying gravitas.
Well, we're doing the same thing we did on the other show, right? I mean, like, why argue about the words when they're asserting gravity? They're saying there's scientific evidence for it. Why not just ask them to validate that? Why argue with them over words?
Sorry, Eli. No.
Words have meaning.
No. Stop. No, because we're talking one step prior to that, which is the Socratic method. What does the word mean? So you then go through and thrash out what the definition of the word actually means. And if there's multiple definitions, you've got to agree on what you're actually talking about. So what we've got around us in Flat Earth at the moment is lots of people committing this etymological fallacy for no good reason. It's like if you've got something that's got a label like incoherent dielectric acceleration, then just call it that. Don't say, well, what they're saying is gravity, which very much has a description. It's got two of them, in fact. Is actually incoherent. It's why are you trying to relabel incoherent dielectric acceleration as gravity? Why?
That's true.
Well, I think.
But then they slip you into this scenario where I think what the public is hearing is, well, there isn't it, so the it exists. And for most people, that's what they think is gravity, keeping us on the earth, assuming also that it's a ball.
You mean something existing, something in general.
Yeah, but I could equally impose the water cycle and say what they're saying is gravity and has a description and could be thrashed out as defined as such. Isn't actually that. It's actually the water cycle. It's like, but the water cycle's the water cycle. Yeah, but if I now describe the water cycle after saying gravity a few times prior to me describing the water cycle, and then give a loose description of how what's being described as gravity should now have that word gravity attributed to the water cycle. Why? Well, because I'm saying that's the cause of a downward vector. What downward vector? Well, the downward vector that if I now describe my water cycle and the rain and what it does is going to be the downward vector that I'm justifying the reason I need to change a meaning of a word from water cycle to gravity. And you're all shaking your heads going, why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense with water cycle. Why would you do this? It doesn't make any sense. No. Well, why would it make any more sense if you do it with incoherent dielectric acceleration, otherwise known as static electricity? Why would it make any more sense? It wouldn't. There's no reason. I don't understand why this is happening around us, but it is.
Well, I'd like to say that on the defining of words, at present, when the ballers use the word gravity, they switch from calling it a description of weight to saying it's a force that causes things, as an attraction between masses, and then they can switch to it being an effect called the curvature of space-time. So that's why it's important to hold someone down on a word, because they are switching between 2 and 3 definitions instead of sticking to the current definition. And
Exactly.
if we allow them to use the word gravity for the word weight.
Exactly. We've already got 2 descriptions. One that's 105 years out of date. The current description, which has been debunked by quantum mechanics, I might add at this stage. Why are we now muddying the waters as flat earthers by introducing a new version of gravity and giving descriptions of incoherent dielectric acceleration? Why would we want to muddy the waters even more? It's like, if you want to describe the effects of incoherent dielectric acceleration, be my guest. But why is that muddying the waters of downward vectors that don't exist and then linking them to a word that's actually defined already, gravity? It just seems like this just muddies the waters. There's a gravity claim out there. We can debunk it. That's it. Move on.
That I 100% agree with. I don't know why that's happening either. And I honestly, I'm trying to make sense of it because I got friends on, but
I think
it's happening because
This reminds
people are
me-
allowing several different definitions for a word.
Isn't it
That's why it's
also happening because they want to prove an ether?
well, maybe you can expand on that. What do you mean?
Well, I'm not the expert on this field. I think Brian could do better, but I'll throw what I got at it. My understanding is they're trying to say there's something out there, and they call it the ether, but there's no way of proving it. And so now the dielectric, at least the little test, I won't call it an experiment, showed that something pulled it a certain way or worked like the ether would work. So all of a sudden, because there's static electricity in our world, they're saying, aha, that's it. That proves it. So that's as far as I think how they're trying to connect the two.
Is it Michael Morley experiment as well? Didn't they do that? Michael Morley experiment? And that failed?
Experiment? Did you say experiment?
Well, that's what they called it.
Oh, that's what they call. Yeah, it's not an experiment. Okay, carry on.
Well, they argue that point. They say they were testing the ether and he couldn't find it. So then that's when Einstein invented relativity. Is that correct?
No, that's incorrect. Einstein was a big ether supporter.
Yeah, I know he was, but since they couldn't detect it, he then came up with relativity to explain how things are meant to be moving at the same time, like a clock. I don't know.
Yeah, but he didn't. That's not either or. He was a huge supporter of the ether, even after general relativity and special relativity.
Yeah, that's why he backed it up. That's why when that failed, the test, the Michelson-Morley test, or whatever you want to call it, when that didn't find a solution to fix the problem about the Earth moving, he then went back to the drawing board and came up with that.
Came up with what?
Special relativity.
Special relativity.
Yeah, how things are moving in at the same time, like the sun and the moon, they're moving at the same time, at the same speed, some shit like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing it. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, but do you know how to debunk the claim being utilised? Huey's already hinted at this with his first response to you, but Michelson-Morley experiment, how would you combat that claim if you just had that? Well, there's the Michelson-Morley experiment. What What would be your next response to that, Mark?
Well, then you go through the scientific method, and then go through the process of seeing the DV and the IV, and seeing if it was a test. But what I'm trying to say is that the whole Western world think this was a test and an experiment, and they're using that, but obviously it didn't work in their favour. So yeah, so that's where we are now. But I do understand. I'm just
I
putting
can
it out
tell. I'm slightly lost for words, Mark. I'm hoping that QE is currently as proud as I am in the words that have just crossed your lips.
Prouder than a game rooster, man. I can't contain myself.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, I'm just saying what they would say, and that's what the whole Western world say. They view it as an experiment, but it didn't work the way they wanted it to work, and then that's why Einstein came up with that.
No.
Indeed, no. But yeah, it's clear that you are armed, battle ready to say, "Oh, right, what was the phenomena being observed?" You know, with the few words you've made that clear. You get it, and that's what I hope for here. I hope that everyone else becomes like you. And here's someone who say, "These Michelin tires are scientifically proven to," and the person like you in this example goes, "Ding, ding, 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 ding." What's that you say? Scientifically proven.
Speaking of which, that's going to be the show today again.
What's your hippopotamus?
See my video this morning?
I didn't. I was real busy this morning, man. It was a rough morning. What was it about?
I mentioned it a couple of shows ago that I hadn't made a video about a guy who'd been sent a Flat Earth t-shirt. I don't know if you were around when I mentioned it. The guy who makes crossovers and typically makes the published data, the measurements available, so you can see what improvements are being made, and he's very good in his language, 2 dB down at 60 hertz, long spectral decay above 2 kilohertz, things like that. And he shows you the measurements. Great, wonderful. Not science, just measurements. Great, nice and clear. Well, this guy gets a t-shirt sent to him saying, "Earth's not flat, we checked," and then starts associating people who don't agree with his claims about his mains cables and beaker wires as flat earthers. Now, that was almost enough for me to make a video about him. So I started editing a video and just decided against him. Like, I don't want to come between this guy and his earnings. It's not my pup. Don't need to. He's been dragged into this by someone just sending him a t-shirt. But then, after about 4 videos about the same subject, presumably calling flat earth, same thing, you're a flat earther if you don't agree with me, then started claiming science. So he's claiming snake oil, speaker wires and mains conditioners are proven with science, and you're a flat earther if you don't believe me. So that was the trifecta, enough for me to respond to him. So what I did was first point out his misapprehensions about science, and then go and dig out Ethan Weiner video that basically goes through all of the measurable parameters that give you high fidelity as a terminology. Very well established, very well measured, very easy to define now because it's been done for hundreds and hundreds of years. However, people who are selling smoke and mirror, snake oil and power conditioners, just totally unregulated, make up all sorts of crap about them and then say science at the end. Not enough for me to make a video about until you say you're a flat earther if you don't believe me. It's like, no, now you're going to get an education from me in what science actually is, with the definition of pseudoscience on screen, and then Ethan Weiner is going to kick your ass in terms of how audio fidelity is defined, while this clown is talking about things sounding dark and collapsing sound stages. All sounds very great. It's not like his normal videos when he was just making crossovers and saying it's 2 dB down at 60 hertz, something you can see on a graph and hear when you actually play it. No, none of that anymore. Smoke and mirrors. Such a shame, because the guy was so transparent when he was talking about crossovers that he made, showing all the graphs and measurements. Again, occasionally claiming it as science. It's not, it's maths. But not enough for me to claw all over until you start calling flat earthers the people who disagree with your pseudoscience claims that are bullshitted about as being science. There you go. That was what the video is about.
Well, you sent that video to me. You sent that video of that guy. I couldn't make the connection. I thought it was so utterly non sequitur. Everything he was saying and his connections, it was almost, he needs to be institutionalized. He's scary institutionalization.
Not normally
That's
like
what I
that.
thought.
And I forgot I did that actually. So if Neil was here, I'd say, see, I did do some work on that video that you criticised me for not releasing. But yeah, I forgot I'd sent it to you. But so for the audience's benefit, as we're still recording, when I was editing the last video, which didn't get released, I'd sent several of the clips that I was using to Quantum Eraser to say, you know, how should I approach this, etc., etc. And as Quantum Eraser's just pointed out, it was so non sequitur because he's just been sent a T-shirt, and it's like, how can I weave this into a video I'm making about wires I want to sell? So he did a very loose, non sequitur job of it, and just used it as an ad hom fallacy to say that you're an idiot if you believe cables don't make a difference, and therefore, in this video, the word idiot's going to be flat earther.
Yes. It was really, really strange. One of the strangest things I ever seen.
But I understand why. He doesn't get it. And he said that at the beginning of the video. He said, I don't really understand this, but I've got this shirt, and thank you very much for sending it me. And then he launches into his talk about his cables that he's flogging.
I think what happens is that people start believing that they are actually, unknowingly, they were all the time working within science. And that maybe he's some form of a science type guy. You know, and this is what happens. People suddenly get an ego about it because they don't know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in sales, you use whatever you can to make your product stand out above anything else that's in the same line of product, because there's competition for people's money. So if you can just go hijack the word science and say my cables are scientifically blah, 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 then you just used a very big word that anytime someone hears it, they...
Oh, we lost you there, 10th man.
Sorry about that. I had a
Hey,
call
yo,
come
10th
in.
man.
So when they hear the word science, they associate that with fully tested, proven, no way around it.
Hey, yo,
Exactly.
and what are we going to do when it becomes societally accepted that science means that it's been, like, when you say science, it means that it's been approved by the WHO and NASA and everyone, like, are you going to stop talking about science?
No, because it's a magic trick that's so useful, and it's a magic trick that's very much planted and thought about and carefully engineered to work. Teach
Right,
the
so, but if
kids
it's
what
colloquially
science actually
accepted,
is from a very early age, and when they understand that science is empirical and is going to be proving things, later claim things as science, and you'll, at a base level, already instinctually know that that must mean it's proven then. And people see that magic trick and want a part of it. So then they do a few measurements, draw up a few graphs, it all looks very pretty, it all looks very official, and they say, well, this is science. See it all the time. People wear a white
right,
lab
but
coat and they want to
colloquially
claim
it's
themselves as
considered
scientists.
Hey, I got a question.
colloquially
Is
it's considered to be science.
is
So
a
that's
photo of
science.
a
Are you
black
rejecting
swan?
science, Nathan?
Hold on.
Because I
Is
feel
the
like it's the
photo of
same
the black?
Tell you
conversation
what,
about gravity.
Goodwill, I would suggest that you just talk straight over the top of him and then insist that you get to continue. Go ahead, Issa.
Yo, I would like the idea that okay, so because science has this connotation of, you know, Mick West approved, right? You know, should we stop using the term science? Like, you know, it kind of gets to my gravity like word. Like, we've taken science to now mean that it's Mick West approved and everyone accepts it as the facts. Whereas everyone in here is saying, well, wait a
Who's done
minute,
that?
science is really the scientific method. It's really this. So could you at least sympathize with my argument?
Well,
That,
should we
See, Issa,
stop calling
that
liberals
gravity.
liberal just because
Oh,
it's not
excuse me
actually
1 second.
liberal?
You all stop
Right?
we do
rumpusing
have a
Issa.
term for that, Issa. It's called
God, he's trying to
pseudoscience.
get to his point, which is that shouldn't we sympathise with people because they're under the misapprehension that science
No,
just
no, no.
means...
Sympathize with me, Nathan. I don't care about the other people.
Oh, with you.
Sympathize with me in my argumentation about gravity once having the connotation of meaning just weight, no extraneous anything to it. And now society has accepted that gravity is gravitation.
That's
So when you discuss
gravitas.
gravity, you're actually discussing gravitation,
Gravitas.
but history doesn't matter. So when we say science, it's commonly accepted as Mick West approved, WHO recommended, and we're trying to say, oh, wait a minute, that's not really what science means.
Isn't.
Right. Just
So
like
you make the
gravity
same
doesn't mean
mistake
fucking
again,
gravitation.
The word is gravitas, and you're trying to force gravity into gravitas. Why are you doing this?
That's in Italian, dude.
No.
Okay.
We're
It's a
talking
different
English.
word.
We're talking English.
Hey.
Well, it means gravity. And
Okay,
gravity
right, before
doesn't
we
have
get back
any
on this, right?
extraneous things on it
Hold on
other
a
than what
second.
people put on it.
Good.
Same thing
Good
with
white.
science.
Hold on. Good white light. Go ahead, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Well, I was going to ask, is looking at a photo of the black swan, is that doing science?
No.
But you're making assertions that the world, that the Earth is flat by looking at a photo.
No, that's not the assertion being made.
Okay, so all you're doing is destroying the globe, so to speak, or what you guys, right?
That's correct.
That's all it's
Destroying the
doing?
globe with logical consistency. That's right. Not science, though.
With your own math on top of that.
But it's one picture amongst many pictures that aren't
How
the
many
same or
black swans do you
repeatable.
need to prove that not all of them are
It's
white?
just two people talking over each other, Chocolate, if you do that. Go ahead, Goodwill. Make your point. Good light, sorry. Good white light. Get there in the end.
Okay, my point is, if you take one photo of 100 photos, you have one black swan, right? That's why you call it the black swan. But what are you trying to prove with one photo when all the other 99 photos show something different, and even those?
Okay.
So I mean, look? I'm going to make my point right here. Can't we deduce that optics photos are unreliable and should not be taken as any scientific proof or any proof whatsoever?
Sorry, are you first, before I answer that question, are you on the globe side or the flat side?
I'm on my side, but
which position are you defending?
I'm skeptical on both sides, but because I can't prove it either way.
Yeah, you can. That's perfect. That's the response I was looking for. What's the conclusion of the black swan? Can you just recite the conclusion for me?
Like I said, how can you make a conclusion if you don't have repeatable, demonstratable evidence? Just have one photo.
You can say I don't know if you don't know. You don't, okay, don't sidetrack. Just what's the conclusion to the black swan? Not, well, it's not this. Just tell me what it is first. Then tell me what it isn't if you disagree. What is the conclusion?
Well, you tell me, because I'm going to tell you the same thing. You can't make any deductions from it.
Yeah, you can. But you just don't know what's been deduced from it, clearly.
Oh, but I do. And I'm telling you that that
Tell
deduction is unreliable. And
No, don't tell us what's unreliable. Tell us what the conclusion was. What was the logical deduction made from the black swan argument? It seems like you don't know because you're not telling us it.
I do. You see the horizon further than it should be.
That's not the conclusion. That's incorrect. Do you want to try again?
You tell me the conclusion.
Well, why are you challenging this? You don't know the conclusion, yet you've got the gall to challenge us on it. You don't even understand the argument. You don't know the conclusion. But yet you're going to tell me how logical consistency doesn't... Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt me. You don't know the conclusion, therefore you do not understand the argument. But you're going to tell me how this logical consistency doesn't prove something? Hardly on the fence. You don't even understand the argument. Otherwise, you'd give me the conclusion correctly. Not the horizon's too far. That is incorrect.
Okay, well, enlighten all of us. And
You're
don't
the
just
one
keep on
challenging
attaching
it.
That I don't
Enlighten
know
you?
something.
I've been enlightening people. Shut up. I've enlightened people for the last 12 straight months. How dare you? Go and watch one of the videos. You expect me... Shut up. You expect me to give you a personal education in this. You're challenging it. What a nerve. So, first, have some dignity and humility and say, okay, yeah, I don't understand the argument, even though I've come here to challenge it. First, have some humility and accept that you haven't got a clue.
I said enlighten.
No, don't ask for me to enlighten you. First, accept that you have challenged something you don't understand. Clearly.
Well, I told you my point of view.
I don't give a fuck, you dumb idiot. I don't want to know about your point of view. You don't understand this argument. How many times? Either you have some bloody humility and say, yeah, I didn't get it, but I came here to challenge it. Not, no, enlighten me. Don't make your demands. I have enlightened plenty on this argument. Plenty of people do understand the argument because I have enlightened them. Now, you are not enlightened. You are ignorant, yet you are here with your ignorance challenging us on it. And when it's demonstrated that you are ignorant of this argument, you interrupt and demand that I educate you. No. First, you will concede that you are interrupting first and foremost because you're getting told off. That's not enough for you, so you've got to interrupt me telling you off. No, you're being told off by a flat earther for your ignorance of an argument you have attempted to challenge based on its lack of logical consistency. That was your position. I listened to you. Now, moving forward, before I educate your dumbass, you're going to say, yeah, I'm sorry I challenged this. I didn't really understand it. That's what's going to happen. We are demanding respect from you from here on in. If we don't get it, you will be berated. Yeah? Chastised, spoken down to, treated like dirt, not educated at your request and demand. So first some humility and respect for us, then I'll educate you. Respect first. Apologise for your dumb humility and total lack of... your dumb ignorance and total lack of humility. I'll get it the right way around.
Who the fuck do you think you are?
I'm the guy who knows how the argument works, you dumb shit. I'm the guy who understands this stuff. That's who I am. Somebody more intelligent than you. Somebody who understands the argument. Somebody who spent 12 months educating other people in this argument to the point where they could recite it. Something you cannot do. Now you're getting told off by a flat earther for your ignorance. That's who I am. A flat earther who knows more than you do. And you're going to damn well respect me. If you don't, you're going to get told off. That is the position from here on forward. You morons who believe the globe is real are going to respect us. Because it's not. And we're going to then tell you how it isn't. Not because you've demanded I educate you. Because I will educate you at my leisure. Which I've done for 12 months. That's who I am. Somebody educating you. On my terms, not yours. Now have some respect.
Come on, Nathan. One quote.
Have some respect and acknowledge that you don't understand this argument. You've challenged something you do not understand. You have come here with ignorance to challenge something you don't understand. Acknowledge that and then we'll move on.
You think you can treat...
Don't tell me what I'm going to be doing. You are not in charge here. I am. I am telling you, demanding the respect I deserve before I educate your dumbass on an argument you're here to challenge but do not understand. That will be acknowledged.
How was I being disrespectful to you?
Because you've come here to challenge something you don't understand, and upon that being pointed out, you demanded that I educate you. No, very disrespectful. First, you'll apologise for your outrage in coming here and demanding, A, that I educate you, and B, that you think it doesn't have logical consistency when you don't understand the argument. Something I've now pointed out and you've not acknowledged. What you have done is say, well, enlighten me then. No, you're the one challenging this.
I never said you're a fucktard. I never...
You are a fucktard. I've said it to you. Now listen to me, ignorant dick. You are going to acknowledge that you came here to challenge something you don't understand. Now, when you display that humility, which will be the respect that I'm demanding, we'll move on. Not before.
No, I came here with...
No. Yes. You will do exactly as I demand, or the conversation will not progress. That is how this will happen. You will show some humility and acknowledge that you challenged something you didn't understand, then I will educate you.
Nathan, you're overreacting.
I have been in this arena for 5 years, and we get absolutely zero respect. Quite the contrary. Not even respect, which would be zero. The mean level that everybody should have as a standard. We get ridiculed. We get far from even the zero mean that everybody should expect. We get ridiculed. Now, we get ridiculed by people like you, who come here with their ignorance of an argument and tell us that it doesn't have logical consistency when they don't even understand it. Now, upon that being pointed out, you don't offer respect, you don't offer humility, you demand that I educate you and enlighten you. Yeah, I'll be the one doing the enlightening because I'm the flat earther who knows what's what. You will be the one offering some humility, or you won't get me playing ball with you. That's how this works. I'm in charge and demanding the respect we deserve before we educate your dumbass.
I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm not apologizing to you.
Yes, you did.
But I'll sit here quietly and let you do your and that's it.
Admit your error
that.
so we can move on.
Okay, well, I'll try a different tact. I'll ask you a question. Why did you feel that you could come here to challenge the Black Swan if you don't understand it?
I do understand it. You're taking
No, you
one
don't.
foot-
See, this is where you are absolutely deserving of the beration that you've received from me. That's why I'm berating you. If you understand it, give me the conclusion correctly. It's not that the horizon's too far.
There's many things, Nathan. You're
Oh, wow, that sounds seriously vague, many things.
telling me to.
No, the Black Swan's got a very specific conclusion.
Like I said,
You don't fucking know. You've just got no respect for us, so you don't think we're deserving of you saying, I don't know. You are under the misapprehension that you can demand that we accept you do know. And when we ask you to justify your incorrect belief that you know the answer to this Black Swan claim you think doesn't have logical consistency, you go, many things. No, you're a moron. So, will we get the acceptance that you don't understand this argument that you're here to challenge or not?
hurry up. I'm waiting.
Hurry up! So you still think you're in a position to give me demands? Yeah, again, disrespectful. Now, I know it's hard for you Globers to extend even an ounce of respect in our direction because you don't have any for us. Yeah, that's fine by me because it means I get to sit here on my little pedestal and demand it and berate you idiots. Yeah, that's what I get to do as a result. I'll demand it of you. Plead to educate again. Go on, beg me to educate your dumbass in some vague way that doesn't acknowledge your stupidity. Go on, beg me again. Beg the one who knows this argument that you're here to challenge to educate your dumbass on it. Beg me.
My gosh.
Yeah, plead to God, because that's this situation from here on forward for any moron that thinks the Earth's a sphere. You're going to get flat earthers humiliating you for your stupidity and your lack of humility and your ignorance of the argument that you're here to attack. Half the time, you fundies who think you're on a sphere don't even know your own arguments, let alone ours.
Facts.
This is what it's going to be going forward. Flat earthers humiliating globe-believing idiots because they don't understand their own nonsense that they're here to punt, let alone understand an argument that's been put forward by us. How would I ever dream that someone who claims to be on the fence would actually understand an argument that is clearly here to attack, even though it doesn't understand it? Why would I ever expect that that would result in some humility and someone going, oh yeah, actually, I shouldn't really be challenging something for its lack of logic when I don't even know the conclusion?
Well, you haven't even told us what.
Oh, what? I haven't given you the conclusion for you to take apart after I educate you on it. No, that's not respectful either. You're waiting for me to put the argument forward in conclusion so you can challenge it. Yeah. So I have to educate you in the argument you don't understand so you can then go forward challenging it again, as you were here to do in the first place, but haven't taken the steps to acknowledge your ignorance of this subject. You don't know what you're challenging, but you want me to summarise it so you can attack it again. Yeah? That's not going to happen.
Why are you being difficult on purpose?
Oh, is it me being difficult? I thought you were here to challenge a black swan for its lack of logical consistency. But I'm being awkward, am I?
Yes.
Is that me being awkward when you come here to challenge something you don't understand? That's me being awkward. Really, I should just understand and accept that you're a moron who doesn't understand the argument and move on, right? No, I'm going to humiliate you. I'm going to say, my name is Nathan Oakley, and I humiliate globe idiots who don't understand the arguments they come here to attack. That's what I'm going to do. Don't have to like it.
Okay, you made it perfectly clear what you think about good, right? Now, can you move on?
I don't know. Will he ever acknowledge that he challenged something he didn't understand? Because he still claims to understand it.
He did by asking you...
Oh, really? That's acknowledging that he didn't understand it because it seemed like he was leading in to attack my summary of the conclusion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if he actually acknowledged that he didn't understand it, moving forward, we could point out that he's already had the humility to acknowledge that, rather than carrying on with the attack that will come if I summarise it, without him showing some respect and humility for his ignorance of this subject, based on his lack of conclusion being delivered upon request. So no, butt out, mate. I'm just going to insist that he has the humility that's required in these circumstances. When you're wrong, don't understand an argument and attempt to challenge it. The person that does understand it will humiliate you if you don't offer an ounce of humility.
That's
My
not true.
stance is
Good, right.
you're taking
Do you-
one photo and you're trying
Well,
to make
first of all,
an
you're not
argument
showing humility, number one. Number two, you think you're holding us to a scientific standard when no one said that this was science. Like, just say sorry, bro.
Doesn't have to
No, but he's
apologise.
being a dick to me, and
I
I was
don't
never
want to be a dick to you.
him at all.
Don't want to be. You're just getting my blood pressure racing every time you insist that I offer you the conclusion you haven't, without acknowledgement that you've challenged something you don't understand. That's never going to move forward from this position, mate. You can go on about me being a dick to you, but anybody watching understands implicitly, if they've followed along, why I'm being a dick to you. It's because...
No, they don't.
Because you're interrupting me when I try and summarise for the fifth time, that coming in and challenging an argument that you don't understand for its lack of logical consistency, and then failing to acknowledge that, and demanding that you get educated in the conclusion, only to interrupt it continually, and then move on with your challenge after it's been educated that you don't understand this. No, and that's not going to happen, ever.
Lad, you came in and challenged something that you don't even know the logical conclusion of. And you did this on a public forum. And when you're asked to just show some humility and accept that you were wrong, and just show that amount of respect and humility and accept you were wrong, your pride is getting in the way because you won't admit that you were wrong. That's what's going on here. If you just admit you were wrong, things can move on.
Wrong about what?
Your challenge! You challenge something you don't understand. How can you possibly challenge that?
One photo, Nathan.
Oh, so you're going to continue with your challenge? So when I assessed that if he got the conclusion from me, he would simply move forward with his challenge. No, we've already absolutely and unequivocally ascertained that this dick, this moron, this person being berated by a flat earther does not understand the argument. But he still desperately wants to berate us. Why? Because he has absolutely no respect for us. That's why I'm, according to him, being a dick to him. Yeah, because I'm going to enforce the respect we deserve. You are wrong. That's been proven. You don't deserve to move forward in the argument. We do deserve an acknowledgement that you have challenged something you don't even understand. We're never going to get it. So I'm going to highlight this for the audience because the position is absurd, unjustified and unreasonable, that you still think you've got the high ground.
There's no moral high ground here.
No, the debating high ground, you stupid idiot. We were in a debate. We haven't even got to the conclusion of the black swan because the opponent won't acknowledge where he's wrong. Even though he's come here to challenge something he doesn't even understand the conclusion of. Can't repeat the conclusion, but still wants to move on, right? This isn't an intellectual challenge. It's a debating challenge. You just haven't concluded with a point because you haven't got one. You don't understand the argument. That's about the 10th time.
No, I think the whole audience heard me and exactly know my point.
Oh, really? When asked what the black swan conclusion is, you said, there are many things. That's an exact quote. You haven't got the vaguest clue, and as correctly identified by Brian, your pride's getting in the way and making you look stupid. And
Yeah,
I
bro,
bet pride
just by you
stings, right?
continuing to say it's just one photo, like that just further shows how much you do not understand what the hell the black swan is.
Yeah, let's deal with
it's
that.
just one black
It's never going to work. He's never going to offer us humility.
I told you, you guys are seeing a different horizon, but what my point is, how if it's not repeatable and you can't demonstrate it with reliability, how can you take it as any sort of proof or evidence or make any deductions?
Okay, no worries.
If you would understand the black swan argument, you would know why.
Yes, that's correct, Darwin. That's the whole point. If you actually understood this logical consistency, then you'd understand the answer to that question. Now, we can't move past that because you can't acknowledge you don't understand it. And Dunning-Kruger, you don't know what you don't know, so you're going to still argue it.
Can I just ask you a question, like just to see if you even understand it philosophically? Like, how many black swans do you need to prove that not all of them are white?
One.
Do you even understand that? One.
So can you not see a parallel with your whole just one picture? Maybe if you understood the logical consistency of this argument, you would appreciate that one picture's all we need. But no, you're going to keep barking on about that, even though that's the very... And maybe interrupt me when I point out that that's the whole point of the Karl Popper analogy, which you don't understand. So what's the conclusion? Our black swan argument. What's the conclusion to that? Tell me many things again.
Why do your minions stay quiet? Let's go, Arwin. Chocolate, let's go. What's the conclusion?
Sorry, are you, what's the word? Clutching for straws as you drown? We've spent 25 minutes trying to get an acknowledgement that you don't understand this argument. And when I push you to explain it, given that you still are under the misapprehension that you think you can overcome this argument you don't understand, you're going to appeal to my panel to save you. Really? How unbelievably pathetic. I'm going to ask you again, what's the conclusion to our black swan argument? Breaking up. Useless mic time, of course.
Waiting for you to tell.
You're breaking up, you're roboting, useless mic. 1990 called. They want their AOL connection back.
Not only does he not know the conclusion, I bet like $1,000 he doesn't know the beginning either.
Yeah, I don't understand why he doesn't understand yet. Chocolate basically just handed it to him. I don't get it. Why doesn't he get it?
Because he learned what he was told the black swan was and is from a load of other people on the ball side who think they know what it was and is just like him. None of them learned it correctly. He didn't learn it correctly. And when it comes to this point where he's the tip of their spear, he won't admit that he was wrong and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, the tip is blunt, so...
Yeah, exactly, well put, Brian. So he's now tip of the spear, having sat around with a load of other people going, it's all a load of nonsense, it's bendy crane refraction, it's only one picture. He's then gone, all right, well, I'll go into flat earth debate and just tell him so. And all we ask is, what's the argument? And he doesn't even know it. It's absolutely pathetic. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.